Yo, what is up, everybody? It's Tuesday, and that means it's time for the Sports Court once again. I'm Eddie Cox alongside Gregory Beatty, and we have a special guest in the house from the Real Deal Sports Talk Show. Mr. Brett B.T. Thompson is in the house. Brett, how you doing today?
What's good, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate y'all.
Hey, it is always a pleasure to have Brett in. I know y'all are going to like his takes. You're going to like where this man is coming from. He is Houston through and through, so he's going to give you a perspective from a fan that is from the great city that we are from, Greg. That is for sure. And you know we got a lot to talk about, too.
Right, Eddie. Can I tell this story one more time about
Absolutely.
this guy right here? Brett Thompson, call him BT, actually grew up next door to this guy. Now, he's, what are you, Brett, 44?
45.
45. Me and his brother Carlton, if you all see Carlton Thompson on my page sometimes, liking my show or liking whatever, been the first true friend I ever had moving to Houston, next door neighbor. Brett, still remember walking next door, me and my mom, I don't know where my brother and my dad was at that time. Maybe they were next door in the house, but right when we closed on the house, 1975, and like right when we closed on the house, walk next door. That's why I met your brother Carlton and your mom Carol, and of course your late great father Joe Thompson. God rest his soul. Then your brother Joey, Dwayne. But I still remember when they brought Brett home. We were in the yard playing when they brought you home from the hospital. That's my last time telling that story for anybody that's new that haven't been watching the show. But Brett has been on in the past a number of times, and he's definitely a friend of the show, like Eddie just stated. But I remember those times growing up as a kid. Brett, snotty-nosed kid sitting there watching us play football in the yard because you couldn't get out there. My brother was only 3 at the time we moved in. I was 5 years old. He was 3 years old. So he couldn't get on either and play any ball. But we had so much fun in the neighborhood.
I broke your bedroom window.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But, everybody has had a fight with everybody at one point or another in the neighborhood. They actually moved. Your dad, Joe, got a great job as a lawyer. You actually moved me and Carlton was on our way to the eighth grade. Yeah, but of course his family, we always stayed close. Like I said, been knowing each other, me and his brothers. His brother Joy is 2 years older than Carlton and I, but been knowing each other since me and Carlton's 5 years old. And here we are, still close, still cool. This guy knows his sports and really looking forward to it.
Without a doubt, and we were gifted something today, Brett and Greg, that I think it's something that we speculated might be coming, but it went down. It went down in a hurry, like a guillotine. I mean, the axe dropped, and Russell Wilson is on the move. He's staying in the West, but he's moving to the AFC, where they've got a cluster of good quarterbacks in the AFC West. You want to talk about Herbert, Mahomes. You add Wilson to the mix, Derek Carr. That is one of the most competitive
Joe
divisions,
Burrow.
if not the most competitive division.
Joe
Well, just
Burrow.
the West in
Lamar
general.
Jackson.
Oh, you want to talk about AFC? No doubt, they're the
AFC,
dominant.
yeah,
They're the dominant conference when it
Yeah.
comes to quarterback. But just staying in the West, looking at what they have there, what Russell Wilson joins, it dropped like a hammer today. And then we talked about pre-show about the haul: 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, Shelby Jones, Noah Fant, and then Russell Wilson with a 4th-round pick stapled to his ass goes to Denver. and now all of a sudden, everybody in Houston, all we could talk about, okay, that's nice. All we could talk about is Deshaun Watson and when he's going to make way like Russell did and where he's going to go. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves just yet. Brett, Greg, what did y'all think when y'all first heard the news that Russell Wilson was on his way to the AFC to join the Denver Broncos?
Oh man, I was floored. I know there was talk, but you know what? It got kind of fishy because the news before that was that Aaron Rodgers was staying in Green Bay. And it smells a lot like that Denver panicked a little bit because that's the reason why they hired that coach, because that was Aaron Rodgers' offensive coordinator. He says, you know what, man, A-Rod doesn't want to be there anymore. I'm gonna get this job in Denver, and I'm gonna bring him here. So when A-Rod announced that he was staying, it sounded like it was all systems go
gonna talk
to
about
go
that
get
too.
to go get Russell Wilson, bring him into the fold. And make that AFC West. That's about right now. Next to the Rams, to the NFC West. That's probably the best division in football now. Man, wow. It's a power now. It's Mahomes. Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Herbert, all in the same division.
And that goes to show you, Brett. That goes to show you, like I was telling Eddie a few weeks ago when we talked about it, when we were talking about Aaron Rodgers and maybe if he should want to go to some other stay with the Green Bay Packers like he's ultimately doing, and we'll talk about that in a second for a hot moment. And we have a lot to talk about, though. A lot of NFL. The NFL Combine was this past weekend. The NBA. Playoffs are near and dear to our hearts, so we're going to talk about that as well. Of course, we're all baseball fans in here, so the MLB strike is not anything that we're happy about, especially being that the Houston Astros, before I get into the Russell Wilson situation, the Houston Astros were going to play my Philadelphia Phillies, my favorite player in Bryce Harper, B. Harp, the first series of the season, and I had planned on going to that, and that's not going to happen. And they were going to play the Yankees right after that. So you see all the money that they're losing, and you see all the fans that they're alienating. But we can talk about that later on as well.
Hey, Greg, you're known to find a hidden trail right there off the side of the road and just hit a quick turn real quick.
Detour, then come on back to what.
Next thing you know, I'm at Minute Maid. I'm like, how the hell did we get here?
Hey, man, and me and your brother back in the day, back real quick before we get back to the Russell Wilson, back in the day, 94, 95, when they had that last strike, or that strike in 94, 95, I used to always find my way into the games when Bagwell was on that record-setting type season and they went on strike. I was crushed. But I used to call Carson and be like, hey, man, meet us up here at the Dome, bro. We can get in. You got tickets. Just come on. Yeah. Next thing you know, we're in the game. Then next thing you know, strike. Bam. But Russell Wilson, that's why, Eddie, I was telling you a few weeks ago when we were talking about should Aaron Rodgers want to stay in the NFC or not. And I said, well, guys of his caliber, of his ilk, they usually don't mind the task of going competing against other great quarterbacks and other great teams. Now, Denver, obviously, they're still not the favorite. A big-time haul for Russell Wilson. I'm kind of wondering if maybe that was too much. Now, I know Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. Of course, Seattle, they're obviously on a rebuild mode. You have Pete Carroll, who's 70 years old right now, to be 71. You know, he's probably still the most energized coach in the NFL. Plenty of youthful exuberance, but that team is on the rebuild. And Russell Wilson, even though he said all the right things leading up to this trade, we all know things happen behind closed doors. We know he allegedly requested a trade last season that didn't come to fruition, but that's what happened. Now he's in Denver. But what I said was these guys do not care about competing. They feel like, and he's the type of guy, I'm sure, first ballot Hall of Famer, still a great player, 32 years old, 33, the way these guys are playing now, taking care of their bodies, playing to forever. So he has some talent over there at Seattle at the wide receiver position, but obviously he doesn't see that team competing for a Super Bowl anytime soon, and obviously the Seahawks don't as well. So they actually got what they could in return, and they're going to build from there, and they're going to let him go on and move on and do his thing somewhere else. So they probably feel that, hey, we can build our team from here because we probably were not going to win with Russell Wilson. We had Russell Wilson last year. Look what the team did. And so it's going to be a rebuilding type of situation, but with the talent of quarterbacks and the teams that he's going to be competing against, it's obvious he's feeling confident about his ability to get that talented Denver team, a great running back, a very good running back, and Jameson Williams. Then you have Cortland Sutton, and then you have Jerry Jeudy. Of course, you lost Noah Fant. You had to get rid of something. But you have some talent in place in Denver right now. Melvin Gordon. Is Melvin Gordon still there?
Currently, he's still on the roster.
Okay, so Russell Wilson feels like, of course, they didn't have to get rid of Bradley Chubb or any of their defensive players. Patrick Surtain, I heard somebody mention today. That's a great point. So they kept their defensive stalwarts over there. So now they can add Russell Wilson into the mix, who, no offense to Drew Lock, but, of course, you're upgrading with Russell Wilson. So he feels like, Eddie, that he can go over there and compete and make Denver a contender just like the rest of these teams we talk about.
Without a doubt. You look at the recipe that Seattle won championships with, and with a guy like Russell Wilson, there's no doubt when you look at their offense and how it's built, why year in and year out they had great running games. So you take that type of quarterback, you plug him into Denver's offense under Nathaniel Hackett. Jameson Williams is going to take that next step, and he is going to become that bell cow. You know, Melvin Gordon can help usher him in another season, but I don't see Melvin Gordon sticking around long. And
he had a good season last year.
Yeah, absolutely. But still, this one's going to go over to the young back. Whenever you look at the backs they had in Seattle, you know, aside from Marshawn Lynch, it was always guys like Chris Carson, guys that were drafted, guys that are
especially at that position
exceeding their potential. The problem over there is nobody could stay healthy.
Yeah.
And if you look at Russell Wilson, you're the Seahawks. you're going to have to give him a new contract in 2 years. So instead of going through all that just right around the corner, knowing that that day is coming, that you're going to have to give him a contract and maybe they don't have the money to do it, go ahead and move on right now, get what you can, and start the rebuild. And I don't think they're exactly, a mile away to where it's this huge rebuild. Because if they can package these picks, turn around and go after a guy like a Deshaun Watson, now all of a sudden, we're talking about the same scenario where you plug in the quarterback and all of a sudden certain players start to present themselves as superstars around this guy. Like when Drew Lock's throwing him the football, he ain't that great. But whenever it's Russell Wilson or it's Deshaun Watson, that guy's a borderline Pro Bowler, and that changes things for an offense. It changes things for an entire team, even for a defense. And like you mentioned, they were able to keep that defense together. That's huge. Fangio's not going to be the guy running the show anymore, but they've got the pieces in place to do something with. I'm just curious to see what Seattle does with those picks, if they're looking long-term, down the road, or if they're looking at a veteran, somebody like Deshaun Watson, because it wouldn't surprise me either if they wanted to go after a guy like Malik Willis.
Right, and we're definitely going to talk about Malik Willis and his exploits at the combine and where he may project in the draft.
I don't know how to. Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree with you. Let me jump in real quick.
Go ahead. Do your thing
before you change gears. Like Seattle, I understand what they're doing. I kind of understand what they're doing, but I don't. Like if they're trading for a veteran quarterback and just trying to retool and compete again, that makes sense with Pete Carroll. But does Pete Carroll have
well, that's why I say he's 70, 71.
Yeah, 76. Yeah, something like that, right?
71. 70,
yeah,
something like
he's in the
that.
70s.
I think he'll be 71.
Okay.
But of course, with him, age is just a number.
Right. But does he have a rebuild left in him?
That's why I was going to go when Eddie said that.
Yeah,
that's why I was going to go, does he have a rebuild? So that's why I think Eddie also made the point, if they can turn it around more sooner than later, maybe that bodes well for Seattle. Who knows? But they have to hit on those picks, though.
Right.
They have to hit on those picks.
Right. But Twitter's all over the place. They're saying that they're having a fire sale that Lockett and DK Metcalf are on the trade block.
Oh, see, now that's a complete
And then,
that's a complete rebuild right there.
Yeah. And then there's they go on the other side of the needle saying, hey, maybe they're going to be in the mix with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So
you never know what to
and
believe.
And then we end up giving up all those picks for Deshaun.
Well, it would surprise me.
And Deshaun Watson would not want to go there in a rebuild situation.
But you want to put that out there because at that point, you're right there on the fence where it could go either way. You could try and retool and make a run at the Super Bowl while you still have a chance. While Pete Carroll is still spry and ready to run, ready to go and not thinking about retirement.
Ready to toss the football on the sideline.
You may just say, hey, maybe now's the time to go ahead and have that fire sale. Everybody right now that we have that we feel like is a trade asset can be traded, at or above their actual value. When you look at Lockett and Metcalf, those are going to be hot commodities by teams that want to add elite receivers on the outside, especially when you talk about how speed is now running the receiver position in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that they're going to go ahead and just cut bait, or that Pete Carroll is going to go ahead and just go into all-out, full-on rebuild mode. I just don't
because
see
he may as well retire if that's the case.
You're right, Greg.
I mean, and the thing about it too as well is the fact that, okay, these players that we talk about, Metcalf, Lockett, great wide receivers. Seattle's probably looking at it also like, well, we had those guys last year as well, along with Russell Wilson, and they don't see – I don't think the front office really sees that team in their heart of hearts, even with Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, who's only going to get better, Lockett, Carson at running back. I don't think overall they really saw that team as a true contender. So
they lost their ability to plug holes or rebuild in places that they needed, or positions that they needed to rebuild at when they made that trade
for Jamal Adams. Yes, sir.
They sort of mortgaged their future. It didn't work out. So now the cupboard's bare, and there's no draft picks to try to fill these holes with. And that's why, you got to make that
Why not
decision,
start now?
Move on, replenish the cupboard. Now, you did that when you traded Wilson. You got a handful of picks back. You can do something with those picks. But right now, I guarantee you they're still mulling it over, as the reports would tell you. They haven't made up their mind yet what they're going to do and which direction that entire franchise is going to go.
Yeah, because if they ultimately get rid of those two wide receivers, that's a true rebuild right there. But, hey, we shall see what happens.
How many first-round picks do they come away with this year?
Hey, what, two first-round picks? What is it, 2 second-round picks, a fifth-round pick, Noah Fant. Is it Noah Fant or Noah Fant?
It's
Noah Fant.
Yeah, Fant.
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. And wasn't it an offensive lineman in there or something?
Yeah,
Or?
one more player.
Yeah.
Shelby Jones.
Shelby Jones. That's a defensive lineman? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And so they got some players in return, plus they have the draft capital, so they just have to hit on these picks.
And, well, think about it.
And hopefully for them, they'd be better more sooner than later, and it doesn't take them the rebuild.
If you trade DK and Lockett, and you come away where you're in this draft with 3 first-round picks, then we're kind of talking about maybe what the Dolphins did. I know that train sort of come off the rails with the Brian Flores issue and all that, and tanking for Tua and whatnot. But there was a point in time where the Dolphins are sitting there with 3 first-round picks with the ability to draft, great players at cornerstone positions, and maybe the Seahawks are angling for doing just that, going ahead and moving on from DK. Because don't get me wrong, he's very talented, as is Lockett, but they're not guys where you could just plug any Joe Schmo in at the quarterback position, and those guys are going to make him elite.
Yeah.
So why not move on, draft young guys, draft guys back on the offensive line, which is where they need a lot of help, replenishing, the hogs up front, which didn't do a very good job of protecting Wilson over the last, half decade or so. Replenish that there, and maybe you end up having a team of young studs that's good sooner rather than later.
And that's probably just as good. That's why I said – we had those guys. They had those guys last season, and look what they did. And so with this attitude right here that they're probably operating with, hey, probably we're not going to win it anyway. Like we're saying, why not go ahead, start the rebuild now, and hopefully we can win some games in the process and be better more sooner than later. But like you're saying, and like I said when we first started talking about it, you had Lockett and Metcalf last season with Russell Wilson. So, hey, but they definitely pulled the trigger, made that move, big-time move by them. Again, you're listening to The Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty. That's my co-host, Eddie Cox, to my left. BT, Brett Thompson, a wonderful friend and guest of the show, is in the house. The Sports Court, where we keep it 100. The show where we keep it 100% of the time. And speaking of that, Eddie, I'm still doubling down on my Aaron Rodgers intuition about what they both really wanted to transpire. But the fact of the matter is, The fact of the matter is,
I wanted you to bring this up. You know, and I'm not with you, Greg. I'm not with you. Greg has speculated all along that head coach Matt LaFleur, never wanted, and the organization never wanted Aaron Rodgers back. They wanted to move on from him. They were just putting up with him. They didn't want to publicly be the ones to oust Aaron Rodgers because they thought it would be a bad look. But secretly behind closed doors, he believed that they did not want him to be their quarterback. Well, there's 200.
Not so much like that. He's a two-time.
They wanted to move on to Jordan Love. That's what you thought.
Here, you know what I thought?
Well, they
thought? And I still actually, see, I knew you was going to hit me with that, and I understand that. But here's what I'm saying is with that, okay, why didn't they offer him $200 million right when the season ended then if they were so gung-ho about bringing him back? They wanted to put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' court and really make him be the one that make everything look like
he came out looking like the
turd,
as they might say, but he came out smelling like a rose as well.
He came out
because he got what he wanted, which was a new contract.
But here's the thing, and he got the new contract, but at the same time, I really feel like I say it like this: if Aaron Rodgers would have decided that he did not want to play for the Green Bay Packers anymore, that's why they were waiting. Again, why didn't they offer him that contract 3-4 weeks ago when everybody was speculating, well, who's going to move first? I think it was a bunch of posturing going on right there because in their heart of hearts, they did draft Jordan Love in the first round for a reason. Now, I don't know if ultimately they didn't see what they thought they would see in Jordan Love at this point, but you know what made that decision difficult? Because you think about it. Everybody's talking about the pressure that Aaron Rodgers is going to have now to win another Super Bowl. You have to think about it like this, too. You think Matt LaFleur is not under a lot of pressure now as well? The last 2 seasons, they've had the best team in the NFC, and he's had the MVP at the helm at quarterback for the last 2 seasons, and he wasn't able to get it done, get a Super Bowl. I think in their heart of hearts, now this is mere speculation on my part. Again, congratulations to Aaron Rodgers, $200 million contract, $50 million a year. He says that's not the exact details of the deal, but he's going to re-sign with Green Bay. I think he vetted the situation. I think he probably looked at it as, okay, where else can I go? And even though people are saying that this conference is tough, where else can I go and excel? Because I've tried this for the last 2 years, winning MVP. I think Matt LaFleur, think about Matt LaFleur. You think somebody is under pressure now that you have the 2-time reigning MVP? And again, I always thought that if he could, that he would move on and do his own thing and show that he could bring a young quarterback along, because they tried it for the last 2 years with the MVP. What happened was with Green Bay is the fact that Aaron Rodgers won MVP the last 2 years. So that put them in a precarious situation. Like, we can't do something like this where we want to make like we're initiating this guy's move from Green Bay. Now, I think in their heart of hearts, this will never be said. This is my mere speculation on my part again, and mere intuition. And I could be wrong, and who knows. But I think when they lost that game to San Francisco 13-10, I think they were like, okay, well, we didn't get it done again this year. Hopefully, we would win a Super Bowl, hopefully. But now we can make a decision on, let's probably try to move on. And, okay, but let's let Aaron dictate. Let's let it all follow him, put the ball in his court. And because, but you know what threw a crimp in that style, though, was when he was named MVP. Now, if Tom Brady would have been named MVP, they would have had a lot more operating room on leverage on how to do things and how to conduct business, and maybe do things where the optics were not going to look as bad. But at the end of the day, I never said that they were not going to sign him back, but I'm serious in their heart of hearts, because if Matt LaFleur doesn't get it done now, what's on his legacy now? You had the best quarterback for what? 2 years you couldn't get it done when he was MVP. Who knows? He'll probably be in the running again next year, and I don't think they're going to win again next year, because I even think Aaron Rodgers was looking at it like, damn, are we going to be as good as we were the last 2 years? They have a lot of holes to fill in Green Bay as well. So I wouldn't have been surprised if Green Bay was actually thinking like, hey, you know what? We tried this. Let's try it this way now. Let's try to rebuild. Hopefully the rebuild doesn't take as long, but hopefully Jordan Love, who we did draft in the first round, who I saw some flashes last year. Now, I know people like to talk about how bad he looked and all this and that. That wasn't what I saw. I saw a guy that if you gave him some time, and Matt LaFleur's situation, the way I'm thinking, he's probably looking at it like, if you let him play and go through live bullets, he can actually be pretty damn good. He was drafted first round for a reason. So I hadn't seen all this, well, Jordan Love is definitely not the answer. But the fact of the matter is, when Aaron Rodgers won the MVP again, that put them in a situation where they were like, okay, we have to put the ball in his court, because if he wants to stay, we can't get rid of him, of course. And anybody looking at it from the outside looking in can be like, we shouldn't want to get rid of him because he's the damn MVP the last 2 years, and he's the great Aaron Rodgers. But I would not be surprised if they were thinking like, how can we get out of this? We know what he wants. We know what all he's asked for, and they hadn't done it up to pretty much this point. Same thing we went through last year with them. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if I could really get into the minds of the Green Bay Packers, the GM, and Matt LaFleur. And if they were like, once he won that MVP, if they were like, damn, he had to win another damn MVP. Now we have to act like we want him.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers looked at the situation, and he went through his mind what talks and what walks. And
that moolah.
Yeah, that's what it came down to. And then the Green Bay Packers.
They had to give him that if they wanted to keep him.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers looked at it like this. You know, if we bring the band back, we bring him back probably the best team in the NFC.
I don't know.
Why not? I mean, why not?
I always thought they was overrated. And you see what happened the last 2 years.
I wouldn't put them over the Super Bowl champions right now. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. But look at it like in Seattle, from Seattle's point of view. If they brought the band back, you bring back a team that didn't make the playoffs. If Green Bay brings back a team, you bring back a team that had the best record in the NFC. You know, at very worst. You know, I mean, all you got to do is make sure you got Devontae
But that cap situation is not good.
You're right, but they're going to franchise Devontae Adams.
They're going to franchise him.
So they're going to keep him. So he's not going to walk. He's not going nowhere. So you bring that core back on that offense, make Randall Cobb give back some money that the Texans were so generous in giving him. Yeah. Okay, and then you keep you got a strong running game. Your offense is on point. Your defense is all you have to do is make maybe a tweak or two on the defense. Then you're right back where you want to be.
Oh, well, they're going to be contenders again, definitely.
Right there.
With Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be contenders regardless.
When you have a chance to bring the band back and your team could be just as good as the previous year, and you're one of the best in the NFC, you do it. It's not rocket science.
Well, that's my point, though. It's not rocket science. And the logical way of thinking is what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And it's not rocket science. I agree, but I'm saying, crazier things have happened when people get their feelings involved and they don't make astute decisions that's best for the franchise.
Well, Greg, I know you've believed for a long time that Aaron Rodgers and head coach Matt LaFleur don't necessarily see eye
No.
to eye.
No. Now, see, that's one thing, Eddie, and I appreciate you bringing that up. After that first season when Matt LaFleur was there, it was obvious that they did not see eye to eye. But I even said the last time we talked about Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure they don't have a contentious
Well, I'm not
relationship.
talking about from like.
I'm sure they don't have a contentious.
I'm not talking about from the point
But I
of
think
putting
they see
together
eye
a
to
game
eye.
plan and executing on the field. I'm talking about where Aaron Rodgers wants to go with the franchise and the organization, and where Matt LaFleur wants to go. Because clearly,
I think they both
they
wanna
both
win,
didn't
Eddie.
figure it out to the last minute here, unless they both were just posturing like
Of course it was posturing. You know, that's my favorite word. Of course it was posturing on both sides right there. And I think they have
Well,
a
it
good
didn't work out
relationship.
very well for Green Bay. I'll say that.
But I think they have a good
Not if the
relationship.
contract term is
I think
true.
they both have mutual respect for each other. I think, like I said last time, I think Aaron Rodgers has a feeling that, and maybe had the feeling, of course, the money, you offer me $50 million a year. I mean, of course. But again, why didn't they offer him that 3 weeks ago?
Look, I told you, Greg, a long time ago. He's not
They're
leaving
good.
Green Bay for the same reason that Brett mentioned. There's nowhere else I thought he could go where legitimately he had a better chance to win
I
the
didn't say he
Super
was
Bowl
leaving.
than Green Bay. You know where I thought maybe he did? San Francisco. You combine
yeah.
Kyle Shanahan
Yeah.
and Aaron Rodgers, and I think they can go win a Super Bowl, especially with that D'Amico Ryans-led defense. However, anywhere else, Denver, anywhere else, I didn't think it was going to happen. So it makes zero sense for a quarterback in the twilight of his career. It doesn't matter how good he is. It makes zero sense for him to just up and go somewhere else where the team is not ready-made to win a Super Bowl. Just because Brady did it and Peyton
But he wasn't
Manning
going to go
did
anywhere
it.
that wasn't
Exactly.
that's a team that's not ready-made.
But Denver was one of the options on the table.
Right,
And to
one
me,
of the
that's not ready-made for a Super Bowl, even with Aaron Rodgers. They're not better than Green Bay with Aaron
I
Rodgers.
agree with that.
So-
I agree with that. But
I
again,
think he was never, ever going to leave.
I'm not so sure about that. I'm
Never.
not so sure about that. Now, again, I think both sides were posturing, waiting for the other one to make a move. So the optics of it in public relations would not look as bad because Green Bay know damn well they can't say we initiated the movement of the two-time MVP who's won it 4 times and just led us to a divisional championship for the second year in a row and yada, yada, yada. I never
But
said
why
that they
can't
were.
they?
Huh?
Why can't they? I mean, Seattle just traded their Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Because
why
the optics
can't
of
they?
it looks so bad.
After
this is
all
the
this
MVP.
time, though,
This is the MVP.
It doesn't look so bad anymore. If they would have traded him, they still would have looked
If
like
he wouldn't have won the MVP,
people would have been
I
like, I
guarantee
understand.
you,
He wanted out.
Check this out, Eddie.
You moved him.
If he wouldn't have won the MVP, that would have changed a lot of things. And Green Bay probably would have made the move first and said, well, we're going to go ahead and part ways. The fact that he won that
I would understand
MVP.
if that was a Super Bowl, but they didn't win a Super
but
Bowl.
yeah,
They were ousted in the playoffs in the
But
the
he
first
won
game.
the MVP. So that's still saying that he's the best quarterback in the league.
He was
Green
either gonna
Bay
be
cannot
one or
make
two.
that move, bro.
He was either gonna be
And if
number
they
one or number
really,
two.
and if they really wanted him back so much, why wasn't that $200 million offered a month ago? If it was
Because
obvious
nobody
that they
wants to
wanted him
come
back.
up off the richest contract in NFL history.
Because I'm telling you right now, Matt
you don't
LaFleur,
just hand it out. You got to negotiate
I mean,
it.
what's the G-
When they realized the line was drawn in the sand, they had to come
He's
off
been
of it.
negotiating for 2 years. They knew what he wanted. They knew he wanted to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. If they were so gung-ho and so sure that they were saying, go ahead and make your decision, do what you have to do, so we don't have to be the ones looking bad in the situation. At the end of the day, of course you're going to make us better. You're Aaron Rodgers. But if you decide to leave, hey, you know what? That's on you, not on us. And now we can start doing what we do, where everything is not about Aaron Rodgers, everything, Matt LaFleur, everything is not about Aaron. Now, again, the pressure is not only on Aaron Rodgers to win the Super Bowl, it's on Matt LaFleur to deliver with Aaron Rodgers and the GM. So now they have that pressure, which is pressure that they probably like or
I
probably
mean, it's
welcome.
been there. They made
but-
consecutive, NFC Championship games just to go out in the first round this year,
And
this past season.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If
The
Aaron
pressure's
Rodgers
there
wouldn't have won,
regardless,
if
yeah.
Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have won that MVP, Green Bay, like you said, Brett, in my opinion, now this is my opinion, we're all giving our opinions right here, in my opinion, would have had more leverage to operate. But hey, kudos to Aaron Rodgers. Never a question about his talent and never a question about whether or not Green Bay should want him back.
Oh, I just feel like they still look bad, though, because you let Aaron Rodgers sort of drag you through the mud in the media threaten to go somewhere else, and then you still have to give him a contract where you're going to commit 75% of that contract as guaranteed money if the numbers are just
So now
stay where they are.
So now where does the team stand?
It just puts them in a position where Aaron Rodgers is in complete control, which at an age where, let's face it, I know he's Aaron Rodgers, but he could go out, have a bad ankle injury, in the preseason or something, and that could linger around and subsequently end up being where he starts to decline. And they could end up out on a lot of money when they were in a place or at a place where they could have traded a guy. If you think if Aaron Rodgers is the guy we're saying he is, Russell Wilson got what he got, I think Aaron Rodgers could have easily gotten more.
Don't trade the best quarterback in the NFL. You just don't trade that. You just don't make that move. That's why I say if he would have won MVP,
done it before.
It would have been.
I mean, think about Joe Montana getting traded to the AFC.
But yeah, man. I mean, come on.
Because they had Steve
But he
Young.
wasn't coming
I'm
off an
just
MVP
saying, yeah,
season.
but
You had Steve Young right there in the fold right there. You had Steve Young,
And
who was
he
set to
was
take
coming off
over.
back surgery,
Who was
yeah.
coming off, and he was coming off
Hey,
back
scared
surgery.
money don't
elbow,
make no
all that.
money. Sometimes you
I
got to
agree
make a
with that.
shrewd move.
I agree with that, but I just don't think Green
Hey.
Bay, with all the – because think about it, Eddie. We talked about this all last year as well. So I still don't think Green Bay wanted that public outcry. How do you get rid of
And I
a
never thought
back-to-back
Aaron Rodgers
MVP?
had the guts to
The-
leave
the
either. I never
franchise
thought he
So
had
there
the
it
guts
is.
to
The
leave
franchise
either.
There it is.
quarterback-
I think Aaron
the fran-
Rodgers, if he –
The franchise quarterback is the most valuable commodity in all of professional sports. I mean, I don't care.
What y'all think?
I don't care what sport you're talking about. You don't trade that. You don't get rid of that. It's ironic
I'm
that we
saying.
say that in the city of Houston that we're about to do that. But
Well, I mean,
I
the
get y'all take
situation's
on
completely
Sean Watson.
different. When you've got a quarterback that's going to draw the line in the sand and say he's no longer going to play for your franchise, as well as
Unless there were
as
some
have the
concessions
baggage that
made.
he has,
Right.
like Aaron Rodgers
I
was saying,
honestly
was saying similar stuff
Right.
last year, and then
Yeah.
what did the Browns do?
That's when
they
teams-
sat him. They sat him down
They have to
and they talked him
explore
off
the
the
trade.
ledge.
Yeah.
I mean, and think about how
But
this
you still take
originated.
the calls.
They drafted a quarterback in the first round a couple years ago. So, so he was coming from one angle, and he wanted them to
He was
acquiesce to
also
some of his.
that guy. Think about how he
Yes.
joined the roster. He
Yeah.
was that guy. He was Jordan Love.
He was Jordan Love.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. You can't get rid of an MVP quarterback again. I guarantee. Well, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm willing to bet if Tom Brady would have won MVP and Green Bay would win out 13-10 like that, I bet Matt LaFleur and those guys would have been like, okay, now this makes it easier on us to move on from this guy. As soon as they named him MVP, it was like, oh,
It's not that much easier, man. He would have been runner up. I mean, he would have been runner up.
But still, MVP, runner up,
You still-
MVP.
Hey,
If
All
you're
I know is
second, you're last.
if they're letting
If you're
those
second,
kind of-
you're
if they're
last.
letting those, okay, Ricky Bobby. If they're letting those kind of emotions dictate the decisions that they make in Green Bay, things are only going to get worse.
That happens.
As
That
they
happens.
have now declined from season to season,
It
not
happens.
making it as far in the playoffs
It happens.
this season as they did
They
last
might-
season.
Now they did make the most astute decision at the end of the day. Again, I
Hey,
think because of the leverage Aaron Rodgers
the devil
had, because
man.
of his exploits.
Bird in the hand.
Bird in the hand. Hey,
Now-
I'm telling you, man. So that's how I feel. That's how y'all
So
feel.
now I want to ask Brett.
Speaking of scared money don't make money, of course Calvin Ridley out for a year now, Eddie. Doing what me and you do every now and then.
Yeah,
Bet
put
on those parlays.
$1,500 on
Gotta
a parlay.
Be careful right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to wait for and
More
see
facts to come out.
how this case turns out. I feel like it's a bit of a harsh punishment. He was betting some parlays involved the Falcons. It wasn't
it
a
did
lot of
involve the
money.
Falcons.
Yeah, he never bet on them to
1,500.
lose. He always bet on them
Bet
to
on them
win.
I did see that.
I
did
know
see
they
that.
want players to stay away from gambling, but I think they may need to reevaluate and reassess the punishment here. To me, a year away from football, especially when we're talking about a guy who already is on the record dealing with mental issues, whatever they may be, whether they're medical or whether they're just on the surface with stress and stuff like that. I think he deserves maybe more help than the punishment of contract year. He's going to have to sit the entire thing out.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The crime don't fit the punishment, or the punishment don't fit the crime.
Right,
in my
and you know
book.
what? And I think the NFL, the way they're looking at it is they're trying to get ahead of it before it just becomes rampant, where all these NFL players, they get involved in gambling, in which a lot of NFL players still do. I mean, they don't have to put their name on anything, and they can place bets and do this and that. He just got caught, obviously. And again, it wasn't like Eddie is saying, it wasn't to the point to where he was giving inside information or he was betting on his team to lose and
Doesn't
some
matter.
kind of way throwing games. But I think the NFL, just from they don't like the way that looks from an optic standpoint, somebody in their league gambling on said sport, on their particular
you
sport,
got people
and they're
on-
trying to get ahead of before it just
Right.
gets out of hand.
You
If you
got
remember Art Slister back in the day, former Ohio State quarterback who actually had some serious gambling problems, and so they're trying to, and they may be helping him in the process.
The optics are horrible. You got people on the internet now pulling up every drop ball Ridley's had. It's about, oh, look at him. See here, he's shaving points. You see what I'm saying? And that's something the NFL just doesn't need.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't need that type of scandal, because the gambling scandal, when it comes to that and throwing games, it's hard to shake that stink. You need a lot of deodorant for that.
Like Eddie, what'd you say one
But
time?
at the
Don't
same-
say that word. Don't say the G
At
word.
the same time, Brett, I mean, you've got right now an active lawsuit that accuses an NFL owner, a guy that is part of the Shield itself. He's accused of paying or offering to pay a head coach to lose games. And even though he's
point.
not
Good
gambling
point. Good
in
point.
a casino, still his prize would be one Tua Tagovailoa, or what they thought they needed to be at the time was to have the first round pick to get, or the first overall pick to get Tua. They ended up with him anyway. Brian Flores, I don't believe he lost games on purpose, but
Right.
we still don't know what kind of punishment that Stephen Ross is going to face from that.
If any at
Nothing.
all. If any at
Nothing.
all.
And see,
If
let me-
any at all.
Let me tell you something.
and if it's nothing, then I think you really have to reevaluate what's happening.
the NFL
Well,
owners,
think about it.
Really.
Roger Goodell works for them.
Yeah, the NFL
Money
owners,
talks, and you know what walks.
The NFL owners embody hypocrisy. Look what Deshaun Watson's going through. Robert Kraft got film coming out of a brothel.
I know.
Out of a brothel.
Yeah.
And I mean, and sidestep, and nothing has happened.
On game day.
You know what I'm saying?
And Deshaun Watson don't have any film.
Nobody on filmed him on anything.
I've been saying that.
You
And
know what I'm
nothing against, and not to segue completely into the Deshaun Watson situation, and not to segue completely away from what we're talking about right there. But speaking of Deshaun Watson, to your point about the no film, no evidence, he has 22 women accusing him. Eddie, what'd you say? That's a lot of he say, she say. But like I've always said from day one, okay, that sounds a little over dramatic for me. Where's the film? Where's the proof? Where's the film? That's why he's standing on, him and his lawyer standing on, hey, I want to clear my name completely because 22, come on now. Again, but if you have evidence that an owner is doing this and doing that, but again, Roger Goodell works for the owners.
Well, if we sit around and wait for him to clear his name, he's going to probably be checking himself into assisted living before he's checking himself before he checks himself to an NFL locker room, because this case could take forever.
It could.
So he's
It
looking to
could.
settle. I
That's
guarantee.
in limbo. The Deshaun Watson situation is in
And,
limbo.
a little tidbit on the Deshaun Watson situation. Friday, a grand jury is going to hear the case from the district attorney that they have on Deshaun Watson. Then after that, sometime, we don't know if it's Friday or if it'll come later on the weekend or in the next week, they're going to make a decision on whether or not Deshaun Watson will be charged criminally.
April
I
1st.
think that is a big domino to fall once it
Huge.
falls.
It is,
If
it is,
Deshaun Watson
it
is
is.
not going to face criminal charges, then these trade talks are going to really start to
Well,
heat
remember,
up.
Really?
Eddie, when
Yeah,
I said
you're
a
right
few
about
weeks
that.
ago, I said we should know more about the Deshaun Watson situation, whether it be on the field or just his legal situation in the weeks to come, which is coming up soon here. So you're right.
By
Hey,
April 1st.
the NFL Combine, unless there's anything else you guys want to add.
Boy,
on that.
if you want to talk about the combine before we, if you don't want to talk about Deshaun Watson, I
Go
know
ahead.
I wanted to talk.
Go ahead. I got
wanted to
two
get-
Texans fans
I
here.
wanted
Go
to
ahead.
get
Go
Brett's
ahead.
take on where he thinks Deshaun's going to go from here, and I also want to get you at some point in time to come back around and tell me if you think there may be a crack in the door for Ford to maybe suit up and play football for the Houston Texans again. Brett, what say you?
Okay, all right. Man, okay, the Deshaun Watson situation is very precarious. It's a terrible situation on both sides. I think I'm the number one Deshaun Watson fan on the planet. I can look into the camera and say that.
You know what
I'm
you're looking
saying?
at right
yeah,
here,
Yeah,
Remember before he got drafted?
yeah,
Remember before he got drafted, I used to be on the show talking about you was on the show before.
Yeah.
He should be the number one pick.
right. Deshaun is
I wanted Mahomes,
This
if you
city
remember.
with this city
See, 'cause I wasn't even hip to Mahomes like that. I
and
ain't gonna lie.
Oilers fans that converted to Texan fans, he's what we've been waiting for the entire time that the Texans have been here. And for him to go out like that, DMing girls out of that, I mean, I think he is sloppy. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as, and I'll go out, no disrespect to these women or anything, I kind of don't believe the charge. I believe innocent until proven
You preaching
guilty.
to the choir right
yeah,
here,
I
bro.
mean, if he's guilty, prove it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think it's one of those situations where you expect both sides to bend the truth.
Right.
Deshaun's going to bend the truth a little bit. We've already seen these women bend the truth a little bit, where accusers have been found out to have seen Deshaun again post whenever the incident occurred.
Right.
So if this man, supposedly physically or sexually assaulted you, why'd you schedule another session with him?
is.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So we've already seen that both sides are willing to bend and stretch the truth.
Right. And
That works in Deshaun's favor.
And I think it's a messed up situation because I think before the allegations came out, the Texans decided to move on from Deshaun Watson. I think your boy.
Well, you know what?
Well, he did go in there and say he wanted it. He demanded the trade.
He demanded the
But
trade.
the timing of the
before that.
allegations
Are
skeptical. No, listen.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
timing of and I said this from day one, it's mighty funny now all this is coming out as soon as Deshaun Watson goes and says that he wants to be traded.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, you have all these cases and this and this and that. I mean, the timing of it just looks kind of funny to me.
If it makes you speculate,
Not
the
funny for
corporate
him, but,
side being, the Houston Texans, like maybe there's some way, somehow, they're trying to besmirch the great name of Deshaun Watson. You could also look at Deshaun and say that he saw the writing on the wall, knew that these cases were going to come to light if he
Good
didn't
point.
get out of town,
Good point.
in a hurry.
Or you can look at it like this. What I think
Because these are local girls,
Right.
The majority of them.
I think.
Where's the video?
Between
Show me a video.
between
22. Come
between
on,
the
bro.
time of him, sometime between when Bill O'Brien got fired, and that was after Deshaun signed his extension. Between there and December 1st, I think Jack Easterby convinced Cal McNair to move on from Deshaun. This is before allegations. This is before a trade demand. And
Wait.
before,
Time out.
Yeah.
Wait. Huh?
Yeah, I think he decided that
Why
Deshaun
would
is
you
not the
think
guy.
that? If he doesn't think Deshaun is disgruntled, as great as Deshaun Watson is, why would you think that they initiated the situation where, okay, let's get rid of him or let's
All right.
let's
Well,
move
why?
on? Why would you think that?
Great question. Because when he was disgruntled and he had problems, and even before he went out,
But I'm
he
thinking
demanded
you're saying that
a
before they
trade.
thought he was disgruntled.
Before that, they did nothing to smooth everything out.
Okay.
To sit down with Deshaun
They didn't
and all
acquiesce
that.
to some of his demands.
Right. They didn't.
They didn't acquiesce to some of his demands, like
Who
same with
doesn't
Aaron
do-
Rodgers.
We're talking about a top 5 quarterback
Yeah, well.
in the league. 25 years old, got his future in front of you. Franchise guy who's the face
know
of your
what?
franchise. You see what Green Bay did with Aaron Rodgers
Yeah.
when he was upset.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
But
They
finally,
didn't-
it took him a while to come around.
No, even last year when he
Well,
was
they started
disgruntled.
doing it last year
Right.
after they drafted Jordan Love.
Right.
But you know
I'm
what?
saying,
Before
what
Eddie
I
get in
say to that is, what more were they going to do at that point in time? What do you do to acquiesce to Deshaun Watson? Do you hire
Sit him down
Do you
and
hire
talk
Eric
to him.
Bieniemy?
Hey,
do
you know I'm
No.
a stickler for talking it out.
Right.
But no, and to
Cal-
answer your question, let me say that. Let me
real
chime in
quick,
right
let
there.
me put this in. I
let me
agree
chime in
with
right
that.
there.
But this is at a time where there was clearly a power struggle at the top in this organization, and I don't think there was one clear-cut guy who knew it was their responsibility or who's going to take the responsibility to go and sit down with Deshaun Watson because they were too busy trying to fight for power within the organization.
Well, see,
You're talking about Jack Easterby, Nick
Right.
Casario.
It's still a
But you
power
know what?
struggle.
I mean, it is. The thing about it too is Deshaun Watson, I don't think it was just about him being disgruntled because they wouldn't listen to him or he couldn't go into closed doors and have these meetings with these guys. I think a lot of it too had to do with some of the moves that they had made prior, a lot of decisions that were not astute in his mind as far as putting a roster around him that can compete for a championship. You know how many hits Deshaun Watson has taken over his career? A lot of that due to him trying to overextend plays and because he's so competitive and things like that. So hopefully that year off has given him some rest to rest his body as well. But I think he didn't really see the talent level. You get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. Of course, J.J. Watt ultimately exits the door. I thought he saw some of the decisions that the Texans were making, and they were not including him on some of these decisions. I don't think he saw the talent that was going to be available for him to really, so he could really have a great career. Well, really utilize his prime, 26, 27, 28. I don't think Deshaun saw the Texans as a team where he could really reach the potential of his prime in those prime years because of some of the decisions they were making. Then you go in with the fact that, okay, he's inside the building and there are already rumblings about, well, they don't listen to certain players or they're on this power trip. And Deshaun Watson's looking at it like, hold on, I'm Deshaun Watson. I'm a franchise. Sure, they paid him a whole lot of money, but if you're going to pay me this money like a franchise quarterback, make the necessary moves around me. Quit making dumb moves around me because you're posturing and you know, you're just on this power trip. And I think a lot of that had to do with it, with the lack of talent that was on the team as well.
A lot of that.
All right.
Go ahead, Brett.
All right, let me answer Eddie's question, like where I think he's going to be. It's really hard to speculate. Okay, now the only way I could see him circling around and having a change of heart is it would have to be begrudgingly. Like the only teams that are willing to trade for him are teams that he just does not want to go to, and he has the power. He
That's
has the
a
no
very
trade.
real possibility too.
Yeah,
I mean,
But what about Lovie Smith coming to the fold? Now, speaking of the Texans,
Lovie
real quick,
Smith-
let me say this. As far as the things I just said about the Texans, now, I think the Texans done themselves a favor by now. I think they've changed the narrative to some degree because I think they realize as an organization when things went flux, like you were talking about, Eddie, I think they realized that they made some decisions that they probably wish they had back, or not so much wish they had back, some decisions that they can ultimately learn from. And I think when they hired Lovie Smith, of course, we all know we could, you know.
The NFL forced that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said that on here. Of course, it probably wasn't the most sincere hire. But again, you're talking about a well-respected guy with years of longevity in the NFL as a head coach. So you can kill two birds with one stone. I mean, you could change the narrative about that we're a racist franchise or that we don't make the right decisions and this and that. Now, of course, they alienated a lot of black fans. Maybe not you, but they have to sell tickets as well. So does Deshaun Watson rethink things because Lovie Smith is in the house?
No, I don't think that. I think his biggest beef is with Cal McNair.
Okay.
You know, Cal McNair came to him and said, "Hey, we're gonna sit down with you and we're gonna talk about this GM position," and didn't even do it. And, you know,
they did. Yeah, they hired a law firm.
Let me tell
They
you
hired a law firm.
something about young.
Well,
black,
that was okay.
That helped kick it off,
Deshaun
too.
was still involved with it at that point. Where it all broke down is whenever Omar Khan was getting ready to be the general manager of the Houston Texans.
They were negotiating with them.
The vice president or senior vice president of player personnel for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was getting ready to be the general manager of the Houston Texans. Then Jack Easterby, swoops in like a thief in the night, steals the ear of Cal McNair, and they go and hire Nick Caserio.
They get on
Not
a plane.
that Nick Caserio is a bad hire, but basically what that showed Deshaun Watson is that the football people were not making football decisions in the organization. Jack Easterby, who had the ear of the owner, was ultimately going to get the last say, and that leaves Deshaun Watson, who's part of that group that I mentioned, the football people, the football brain trust in Houston. He felt like his vote really didn't matter, and that's where everything started to break down. Now, here's where it could come back into play. Like you mentioned, Brett, there aren't teams that he wants to go to who are willing to trade for him or who have the
Carolina?
assets.
He doesn't want. We don't know if he wants to go there.
Yeah, we don't know if.
Well, the only place we know Deshaun wanted to go was
traded.
Miami is out.
But
so if he doesn't want to play for the Texans, he has to want to go somewhere.
Well, all right. I mean, yeah. It depends. I mean,
because he's not going to miss another year of football.
I think yes, not $35 million.
That's where Houston comes back into play. Where they also come back to play is if you're in the Houston Texans, you look at what Bill O'Brien did to the franchise, trading away some of your biggest assets. DeAndre Hopkins, trading away two first-round picks to go and get Larry Tunsil, which did say to Deshaun Watson that we're going to try to protect you. It may have been misguided.
It did.
Don't forget that Deshaun Watson did stand up at the podium, and back Bill O'Brien.
Now they're saying Tunsil is on the trade block.
After he traded DeAndre Hopkins. So Deshaun Watson was still all in for the Texans at this point. But what the Texans have lucked up on, and this is going to segue us into our next segment, but what the Texans have lucked up on is the fact that they are in possession of the third pick in the draft, and one Malik Willis is now climbing his way up draft boards to where you can replenish the cupboard of draft picks. Not by having to trade Deshaun Watson, but you can go and get 2 first-round picks for this third overall pick, and maybe get something else to go along with it. And then guess what? You don't have to address the quarterback position because you convinced number 4 to come back and play, and you get him in the building talking about, okay, which guy on the outside do you think works for us here? We're at 17 or somewhere like that. You know, which one of these speedsters do you like?
Is it Garrett Wilson or is it Chris Olave?
There is. I'm
gonna
just
talk
saying
about
there's
that.
ways where now that they have that asset, because before the third round pick, before it was even plausible that the third overall pick could be a quarterback, there's no way anybody's trading those kind of assets to move up to that point. Not for Kyle Hamilton, not for an Aiden Hutchinson. It's just not happening. Nobody's trading that type of capital. They're going to stay right where they're at, especially when the
It's
draft.
not a franchise quarterback in this draft.
Exactly, especially when the draft is deep. Where it's not deep is quarterback, and where we've
talk
seen
about-
players take off is at quarterback.
Yeah.
Malik Willis has
If
done
they're put in the right
everything
situation, yeah.
he could imagine
But we're gonna
to
talk about
boost
that.
his draft stock
Absolutely.
at the combine.
Yes,
and I
and
mean
we're gonna
from on the
Yeah, we're
field,
gonna talk
off
about
the
it.
field, all that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk
And
about
that
all
has
those guys.
changed things for the Texans. So if you
Okay.
are one of those people that are hopeful, maybe there's a chance Deshaun could stay. The only way I could see them talking themselves into it is if they still find a way to go get 2 extra.
So you're saying
first-round
the Texans
picks
could be in
by
play for
trading
Malik
that
Willis?
third. Look, well,
Anything is possible.
no,
I'm just asking.
Hey, if you want to get Malik Willis and trade Deshaun Watson, that's one thing. I mean, you are taking a big risk. I do like Willis, but if somebody else is in love with Malik Willis and you can get a 70% haul of what you might get for Watson for Malik Willis, I think you have to pull that trigger all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
I got you. And the Texans definitely have plenty of holes to fill. If you look at the Texans draft needs, before we talk about Amari Cooper real quick, then we're going to delve into the NFL Combine this past weekend. Some great storylines coming out of there. You all don't go anywhere. You listen to the Sports Court. I'm Greg. That's Eddie to my left. That's Brett to my right. And, hey, we're talking, and we're going to be here. We're going to talk some NBA, so do not move. We're going to talk NBA before we get out of here. We're going to talk some NFL Combine here, coming up here. But real quick, my Dallas Cowboys, Amari Cooper, who's probably going to be released, and Eddie, Brett.
Nobody's taking on that contract.
I actually agree with that move.
Not when you
I actually agree with that move.
When you know Dallas
As
has
much as I
already
like
moved
Amari
on.
Cooper. Yeah, I mean, as much as I like Amari Cooper, the thing about it is he disappears way too much. Now, you can't pay a $20 million. You can't pay $20 million to a receiver who's not a legitimate number one right now.
All right.
If you think about it, hold on, Brett, let me say this real quick. Now, you look at it, 6 games out of last year, he had 3 catches for 50 yards or fewer. It's too many times where he disappears. And then Jerry Jones also knows. Now, granted, I like Amari Cooper when he's invested, but he takes too many plays off. Great guy, but he gets in his feelings too much if the ball is not coming his way early and often, and he tends to get covered more so than he should because he's just not giving it his all. Because we all know Amari Cooper can break people's legs
Brett,
the
tell
way
him
he
what
comes
we
in and out of
both
breaks.
know. Tell him what we both know. It was a
but let me
terrible
say
deal
this.
from the start.
Well, actually,
It was a terrible
I got
deal
a
from the
third
start.
Let me finish. Now you have 2 players. Now you have C.D. Lamb, who's ascending as a receiver. You can't play Amari Cooper that as much, Eddie, as much as we love his talent, but you can't pay $20 million to a receiver who's not going to be your number one. Then you have Michael Gallup, who now you have to pay, who's coming off knee surgery. But we all know the way these people come off knee surgeries these days. He's a big-time player, a big-time receiver.
I think
You
he
have
got an
Cedric
extension.
Wilson.
Who's a free agent?
I agree with that move.
He might be a Texan.
And then you can open up some doors for some other players to get in.
Y'all might lose all 3 of them.
Huh?
Y'all might lose all 3 of them.
No, I think Gallup got the. I think Gallup got an
Gallup's a free
extension.
agent. He's a
I
free
think he
agent.
got an
He's gonna sign back
extension.
with he's going to get an
look
extension
it
with
up
Jerry
right now.
Jones.
I think he
You
did
think
get
Jerry
it.
Jones going to let him get away and cut Amari Cooper?
All right. See,
That's not happening.
All right. Now, here's the thing. Okay, Eddie, I see what you're talking about, but let me say, I think Amari Cooper's lack of production is more of a Dak Prescott issue than Amari
Okay,
Cooper.
tell me why. Tell
Because
me why.
I don't think Dak gets him the ball. He's sitting there targeting Cedric Wilson.
He does do
more
that a lot.
Than him. I mean, it's not like is Cooper out there with a bunch of targets and just a bunch of drops and stuff like that? No.
Now, is he getting
Dak
separation?
not getting the ball.
Now, here's the question. And you know how I feel about Dak. Dak can definitely improve, and sometimes he should take more chances.
He's not that
and
guy.
He probably, don't get me started on that. I think he's that guy, but when he was asking for the $40 million, he was demanding $40 million. I had some trepidation about that because he hadn't shown. He still has a lot of improvement to do.
Hey,
Hold on.
Now, after
We
Aaron
saw what
Rodgers
happened
set
in
the
the
market, that's a pretty good contract now that Aaron Rodgers set the
real
market.
talk, real
Because
talk,
next
real talk.
year, somebody who's not as good as Aaron Rodgers is going to get close to that because they're going to be the top quarterback on the market.
changed
You
the
ended
whole
up getting a
market right there.
deal for Dak Prescott there.
Well, actually,
for
now it's
me,
looking like that,
Prescott's
Eddie.
not the problem. It's Kellen Moore not knowing how to
here's the
incorporate
thing.
balance into his
And plus,
offense.
Is Amari Cooper getting separate? There it is. Is he getting creative enough in his offense? Here's what I said after the playoff game, Eddie. I said, you're talking about CeeDee Lamb only had this many catches, and Amari Cooper had this many catches. Brett, my take was the same thing Eddie is saying. My take was this after the playoff game about Kellen Moore. You find a way to get CeeDee Lamb the ball as an offensive coordinator. I don't care if it's a screen pass, whatever. You see how Shanahan got your boy Deebo Samuel the ball? I mean, you find a way to get your receivers, your big-time receivers,
That's
the
not
football,
on Cooper.
and
That's
you
what I'm
drop.
saying.
You drop, but it's not on Dak Prescott, I don't think, as well. I think Dak probably could have looked for him more often, but here's my question, too, and I would have to watch the film and cut up everything to really see, is he getting himself, again, when he doesn't get the ball early in the game, whatever it might be, he checks out way too often. And that's mentally weak. Now, when he was with the Raiders, he had 2 Pro Bowl seasons with the Raiders. His first year with the Cowboys.
Yeah, but they were peppering the way the Texans peppered Andre Johnson.
He had over 1,000 yards his first year with the Cowboys. Last year, first year with the Cowboys, 2020, he had 92 catches for over 1,100 yards. Last season, he had 68 catches for 800 and something yards.
Right.
And again, you can't pay $20 million to a guy who's not even your number one receiver.
You're right about that. Eddie says that was a bad deal. And you know what? But Jerry Jones has a history of this, of overpaying wide receivers, going back to Terry Glenn.
Well, now it's looking like a bad deal. I'm not saying
your
it's a
boy
bad
Joey
deal.
Galloway.
Yeah.
JG,
I still owe you that dub,
Greg's
JG.
like, you about to cross some freaking line.
You know, I keep it 100. Shit.
No,
Jer-
you start
Jerry-
bringing up all the bad deals.
Right.
Greg will throw some bad deals back at you.
Jer-
He said,
Jerry-
let me throw
Jerry
Brock
breaks-
Osweiler your way. How about that?
Cooper, Jerry breaks the bank for these wide receivers for some reason. He don't break them for offensive linemen. I mean, I think he went and got Flozell
You know
Adams
what?
one time.
I
about
think
this
this is a
it.
different day and age now to where wide receivers, there's so many talented wide receivers.
You
We're going to
can't
talk about the
break the
draft
bank.
here.
You gotta
We're going to
grow
talk
'em.
about the draft here. And that's what happened with Cedric Wilson. That's what happened with Cedric Wilson. And that's what happened with Michael Gallup, who you drafted in the second round, even
Right.
though he has the ACL. So that's why I think my ultimate opinion is I think that's a good move by the Cowboys to get rid of Amari Cooper. I mean, I like Amari Cooper. I still think he's talented. I still think he can make somebody else a very good receiver. Maybe the Raiders. Maybe he goes back to the Raiders and helps out David
Gallup
Carr.
might not be ready for
Derek
camp.
Carr.
He might not be
He
ready
might
for
not be
camp.
ready for camp, but I think that's just something I have to deal with. Somebody else has to step up in that
He's
regard.
probably gonna go
Cedric
somewhere
Wilson,
like-
CeeDee Lamb will still be there.
I can
Cedric
see it
Wilson, so
already. It's like Kansas City signs Amari Cooper.
They
And you're
can
like,
sign
of
it.
course.
And
That's a
then
good move.
1,500 yards.
Yeah.
I know.
Well,
I know.
I don't know
You
about
know
that
Mahomes,
because
but no.
I think he would just be
13,
that
Just
big.
around may take off again.
He would
It
just
may.
be the big body on the outside that they don't have in the red zone. You know, they've wanted that. They brought in Josh Gordon, you know, at a point in time, hoping maybe he could be that. They brought in Watkins. They need somebody big they can put on the outside when they're in the red zone, because let's face it, we know their number one target's Travis Kelce, and they'd like to be able to go to the outside with him sometimes. But you line him up out there, you know you're throwing the fade to Travis Kelce, and you're not running the football with him out there because it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So you need a big guy, a big wide receiver who can help you out in that area. Amari Cooper could be that guy, and they're shrewd enough to bring
Then they have a
anybody
nice
in the
tight end
building.
over there. They have a nice running game
you know
with Josh
that they
Jacobs.
would get him on a bargain. They just have a knack for getting those kind of deals done with guys like that. That Green Bay's
Maybe
another
Atlanta
option.
now since Calvin really is out.
That's a possibility as well. But if you're Cooper, you know you're getting in that age, that point in your career. You've been playing with a quote contender in Dallas. He's going to want to play for a contender. If Green Bay wants to add, a veteran, I think he's that guy. You let Cobb walk. You bring in Amari Cooper. He gives you something you don't technically have there. Yeah, you have the total package in Adams, but he gives you a legitimate number 2 option that you don't have to take off the field very often.
I would let Cobb walk for Amari Cooper.
Not if you want Aaron Rodgers.
What Aaron Rodgers is self-sabotage. That's self-sabotage in my opinion. Because you
He's
can't
the
tell
reason
me
Aaron
that
Rodgers- was part
at
of the
this
deal
point,
that-
I
for
like
them
Randall
bringing him back.
Cobb, but I'll take Amari Cooper right now at this point in his career over Randall Cobb
I
any day of the
would.
week.
And they basically
Now, they play different
positions.
Yeah.
you
One
know.
is inside, one is
Yeah,
outside.
so, like-
But you know what? Speaking of receivers, fellas, let's move on because we still got a lot of NBA to talk about as well. But, hey, kudos to Eddie, Brett, kudos to Pop. Before we get into the NBA, we're going to talk some NFL Combine. Greg Popovich tied the wins with what? Don Nelson for most wins in NBA history. So we'll talk about that coming up. Coach K, couple of tidbits. Coach K coached his last game in college at Duke's home had everybody in the building, all the former players, over like 200-something guests, and North Carolina found a way to win that game and spoil that. but Pancaro, he's a monster. Now,
Ventura,
I'm
yeah.
still saying Chet Holmgren will be the number 1 pick, and we can talk about that if we have time at the end or whatever, or when we talk basketball. But Pancaro and Chet Holmgren right there, 1 and 2, you can't go wrong with either one of those guys. But the NFL Combine, fellas, what stood out? Eddie, what do you think? Now, first of all, let me say the NFL Combine this past weekend, you're talking about, and to our point about all these teams and what they may need, and as far as who could use a receiver and who cannot use a receiver, or who can use this and use that, one thing about it, even though this isn't a rich draft as far as quarterback talent, as far as a franchise quarterback per se is concerned, but you still have some guys that could eventually turn into franchise quarterback if they get in the right situations. But the thing about it, one thing about this past draft, speed, speed, speed. I'm talking about from everywhere. Defensive linemen, wide receivers, defensive backs, running backs. But the talent, it was definitely on display at the Combine. And there's a lot of talent in this year's draft where some teams, if they do the right vetting and they really assess the situations right, they can really improve their teams very quickly because there's a lot of depth and a lot of talent in this draft. And at the Combine, one that really stood out to me, fellas, Big Jordan Davis out of Georgia.
You know, he's definitely going to be on the Texans' radar.
There it is.
Even at 3, he's just that, big
6'7",
of a guy.
341, running 4.78. Come on, bro.
The split on that, the 186 on the split.
Ooh,
on the
that's
10-yard
athletic.
split.
That's
I mean,
athletic,
Big
bro.
reason
That's
why
what,
the
that's what wide
Bulldogs.
receivers
I
run.
know, I know.
Big reason why the
I know.
Bulldogs were
32 inch
national
vertical.
champions.
And,
And
I
the Texans
mean,
could
you put
use that type of size up front.
Yeah, quick, athletic.
He can anchor a
can bend.
defensive line. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that was a.
The question just becomes then, can you trade back a little bit and get another
still
pick
get-
and still get him?
You know
And I
what?
think you could,
Ma-
depending
how
on where
far do
you
trade
go.
back? Yeah. How far do you
Not
trade
far-
back?
not
Because
far.
Not far,
than
not
10.
further than 10.
Definitely
That's still
not
got to
further
be
than
top
10.
10. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not further than 10 because he just ascended to definitely a top 10 pick for sure. But because you can't, I mean, even though pass rushers and edge rushers, but that's a guy, that's a freak of nature right there, bro. I mean, 6'7", 340 running a 4.7 something. I mean, at 341 and athletic, they say his backpedaling drills. I watched him backpedal. He was backpedaling as if he could cover a tight end or something, like you're saying. I mean, then you have Trayvon Walker from Georgia, ran a 4.51. You had the other dude from Georgia who also, Devontae Wyatt. What? He played with Jordan Davis. They both played with Jordan. He ran a 4.77. So that's a guy right there, has a low center of gravity, changes directions, bends real well. Georgia, like I said all along, Georgia has some talent over there.
Right.
They had 8 players at the Combine from the defensive side of the ball. 8 players. But Trayvon Walker from Georgia, yeah. I mean, and so you have some surprises right there with Trayvon Walker. But what they were able to do, Jordan Davis, then the pass rushers, what do you guys think the Texans sitting there at 3? We were talking about the Texans. Of course, you have Aiden Hutchinson,
Thibodeau.
who's going to be gone to Detroit with the 2nd pick, who here's a guy who's relentless. He reminds me of, and he's more athletic than people give him credit for.
Hutchinson?
And you have ties to him, huh?
Yeah, you do too. You
Well, I
play-
do too,
You,
yeah,
you,
yeah.
play- you played against his dad
Yeah, I
at,
did.
at Michigan.
Yeah,
And
I sure
his
did.
Dad, his dad played
Chris.
with my brother Carlton.
That Chris,
at,
right.
At Side Creek.
At Side Creek, right.
Yeah.
So Aiden Hutchinson, who shined this year at Michigan, then you have Ojabo, who's coming off the edge. He shined at Michigan this past season as well. But Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau ran a 4.58. And again, when I watched him play this year, that he was coming off injuries and things of that sort. Didn't play against the Buckeyes, and they still beat my Buckeyes in that 2nd game of the season. But the dude's a monster, and I just watched his explosion. He had the most for bench press from the defensive line position. And I think it was 27, if I'm not mistaken. But
He got long arms.
he has
too.
long arms, and he's very explosive. That shows you his explosion.
Yeah.
And ran a 4.58. So he's gonna go very, very high. Where do you guys see the Texans before we talk about some other players like the receivers, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave? Where do you see the Texans going with that 3rd pick? Kyle Hamilton, Eddie, you talked about him before. You just mentioned Joe.
For me,
you just
that's
mentioned Joe.
the guy. If you're going to stay
Okay.
at 3, I think it's Hamilton, unless Aiden Hutchinson somehow falls into your lap. I know everybody's convinced he's going to go to Detroit. I'm not so convinced he doesn't get drafted number 1 overall, or he doesn't get drafted.
I think Big Evan Neal goes number 1.
that is one
about
possibility.
Okunu?
But
Acuna from North Carolina State. I think one of those guys go to Jacksonville.
That is one thing. If
Unless Jacksonville trades
those
back, because
two
they
guys-
need to replenish a lot of talent as well. But go
those
ahead.
2 offensive linemen are so talented, you could easily justify
Taking one or the other.
overlooking the pass rusher and going those two guys, 1 and 2, at the top of the draft, which would then give the Texans, their choice of an Aiden Hutchinson. He would still be on the board, or Kyle Hamilton at that point. But I'm just not so convinced that Detroit is just going to draft Hutchinson if the offensive lineman that they covet happens to be sitting right there. It's real hard to turn away from one of those guys that let's face it, offensive linemen, they stick around a long, long time.
They do,
when you
Eddie.
hit on that pick, it pays dividends for
They
years
do, Eddie.
and years.
But you know what, too? As far as it pertains to Detroit with Hutchinson, he played in Michigan, and I think he's from somewhere.
he's got the hometown ties.
He
and
has
I see
hometown
that.
ties, and I think for his marketing purposes, then of course we all know. This goes without saying. We all know in today's game you need a big-time elite pass rusher. So they probably figure that they can shore up that position and get a guy that's like the Bosa brothers or all these top-tier pass rushers coming off the edge. I think they could probably, he's a hometown guy, so we could probably put more fans in the stands, and we can get the production we need and have a guy that can get out to the quarterback for the next 10 years. But I agree with you as far as the tackles are concerned, because I used to be a guy who thought that, man, a lineman, all they have to do is pretty much move in the confined area. I've always been one saying that if you're a very, very good scout, if you can go somewhere and find a lineman that's athletic enough, has good feet, does a lot of jump rope, has quick feet, has strong at the point of attack, athletic, and a dog as far as like your guy from North Carolina State, what's his name?
Yeah,
Ziggy Aquanu.
Yeah, Ike Aquanu.
Icky.
He's a guy who's nasty. He's nasty. If you can find somebody like that from a smaller school that can do that, and you can coach him up, and again, if he has the athletic ability, the strength, and has that dog mentality, why can't you find a lineman late in the draft? Why can't you draft one of these guys who's going to put points on the board? But really, it's so important to have an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman to protect which I've always known that. I just thought maybe you could find it in other ways other than spending a top pick or a top 2 pick. But
sometimes
these
you
guys
can. Sometimes you find those
They're the
guys.
money makers.
But the thing about
the pass rushers are the money makers. So like,
well,
Thibodeau,
even offensive lineman I'm talking about.
you gotta trust your scouting. Do you see Myles Garrett in Kayvon Thibodeau? Do you see that? I kind
He's
of
kind
do.
of a tweener too. He can play linebacker. He can drop in coverage. He can come off the edge.
Right.
He's
he
explosive,
needs
bro.
to just, in my opinion, he needs to just be rushing the passer.
Right.
Yeah, they bring
Let him
these
get out
guys
the quarterback.
in. I know he did that at Oregon. He dropped back into coverage
Well, I'm
sometimes.
just saying if you need
but
to.
really,
Yeah, that
I
athletic
think in
ability.
Lovie Smith's defense, if we're talking about here in Houston, and Lovie Smith's defense, you put him at defensive end, coming off the edge, and you leave him there, hand in the dirt, let him go.
Oh yeah.
That's
definitely
it.
his
You don't want
primary
to put
thing
too
is
much
to
on
get
his
to the quarterback.
plate. If he's going to be a success at the NFL level, it's not going to be because he's Von Miller. It's going to be because he's coming off the edge, getting 15, 20
I agree with
sacks
that.
a year.
I agree with that. I agree
no
with that.
interceptions.
What's up with you guys from your boy from Cleveland? Our boy Javon our boy from Cleveland. No. They played here.
Clowney?
Jadavion Clowney.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing right there. I forgot his name already because he hasn't done a damn thing. He was the number 1 pick. So we talking about these number
And
1
to
picks.
me, Clowney's more gifted than he was.
Man, now don't get me wrong. I like Clowney. He's a good player. He had a pretty good season with opposite of Myles Garrett last year in Cleveland. But number 1 pick type status. Of course, he had some knee injuries as well. Yeah. So, but we'll see if he finally gets
Thibodeau
10 sacks
in the
this
top
upcoming
5.
season.
I don't
But
like Thibodeau
Kyle
in the top 5
Hamilton,
for that reason.
To your point about Kyle Hamilton, I got you. To your point about Kyle Hamilton, who didn't have a great combine, but, bro, I'm a stickler for look at the film. What does the film say? He's a player. He's a playmaker. He's a guy, the late, great Sean Taylor has tremendous range. Ed Reed. But he's a guy who has tremendous range at free safety, 6'4". So, now granted, with the 3rd pick, that's mighty high. Unless he can just really affect the defense in that regard, you really should want to start by building with a pass rusher or an elite corner. You have Derek Stingley Jr., you have your guy Ahmad Sauce Garner from Cincinnati, who they can take a look at as well.
Those are
It's some
nice
nice talent in this draft.
But not for the Texans, though.
But looking at the wide receiver position, hey, I'll be honest. I did not, and of course I'm an Ohio State fan, of course. And I'll be honest, I knew Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave were fast. Of course, I watched every game they played in college football, and All-American receivers, special talents. I really want to see what those guys were running the 40-yard dash. I really was waiting to see what they ran in the 40. I know they had football speed. I know they can get on the field and do their thing. You look at Chris Olave, and again, Brian Hartline, he doesn't get enough credit. He's not given enough credit for the job he's done as a wide receivers coach with Ohio State. I mean, you have a plethora of wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jigba. Ohio State is going to be loaded at receiver again. Look at your boy Jameson Williams.
Brian Hartline, white receiver that paved the way for guys like Adam Thielen and Kevin Walter.
Yes, and the thing about Hartline is
obligatory
he has those guys.
He's done
the way they ran routes along with Ryan Day, so they know every route in the route tree. Every route in the route tree, they can run every route in the route tree to perfection. And one thing I wanted to see was the 40. Because Garrett Wilson, come on, man. You're talking about a quick twitch. You're talking about quick twitch can change directions in a drop of a dime. So great run after the catch. Quick twitch, athletic, can high point the ball. Acrobat. And now he runs a 4.37 in the 40. That solidifies him as a top 10 pick, in my opinion. But he also can return punts. And one thing at Ohio State that I didn't like about Garrett Wilson, or maybe it was the coaching staff, the fact that he called way too many fair catches for my liking, because I thought he could have took back a lot of punts for touchdowns. He almost broke a few, but the talent is there for him to be an elite punt returner. But he called fair catch way too often. When he gets to the NFL and he returns punts for whichever team he gets drafted by, he's going to be an elite punt returner as well. So he has the deep speed. He can go get the long ball, but you can also get him the ball on the screen. He can make magic happen. Chris Olave, super smooth. I'm talking about, when I say smooth, they say some receivers are smooth. He is legitimately smooth, where he just glides. He just glides. And both of these guys catch everything with their hands. They're real confident in catching the ball with their hands. And I was really impressed with them at the combine. Rucker did well at tight end as well.
I got a lot to say about this. Okay. All right. I have a love-hate relationship with the combine. I think the combine overhypes guys that don't deserve it, and I also think it undervalues
it's a market,
guys.
Bro.
Yeah, and it undervalues guys. The 40. Okay.
Look at Pickett.
I love watching. I'm fascinated by the 40-yard dash, but a lot of these 4.3 40s are fake. You know what I'm saying? And like like you say, the tape don't lie.
Tape don't lie.
If you're a legit 4.3 dude. You got at least 4 or 5 touchdowns where you're running away from the defense. That's real. I've been evaluating that for the last 10 years. Yeah. If you don't have that on your tape, you don't run a real 4.3.
Eddie, before you chime in, Eddie, and the thing about it too, in football, and why I've always said, show me the tape. Look at Emmitt Smith, bro. I can go on and on and on and on and on.
Right. But I'm gonna tell you about your boy Garrett Wilson, 4.38. The tape shows.
Caden Barnes, Baylor.
Olave, but your boy Olave. I don't think he has a real 4.3.
I never did either.
Yeah.
I thought he was probably gonna be like a 4.5 at the combine.
Yeah. I think a lot of these guys they get these 40 coaches and they
go out there. Bro, you stole my thunder right there.
Right there.
You stole my thunder.
And a lot of these guys
they train so good for it.
They train
so good for the 40. So a lot of these guys, Brett, you stole my thunder right there. A lot of these guys come in there and they train so hard for that 40-yard dash going into the combine. They get their start worked on to perfection, and everything trained with these 40 coaches. And so how consistent can they be at running? Like my boy Joey Galloway, he was running 4.1s, 4.2s.
Oh, yeah.
He was running 4.1s, 4.2s.
And it shows up on tape.
After ACL. But to your point about the tape, and to my point about show me the film, is because you're not going to run a straight line 40 in football. You're going to have to maneuver, get around people, start and stop. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I'm in agreement with you on that as far as the combine. Yeah, speed kills. Yeah. You want speed, definitely. Now, what's going to happen when they run at their pro day as well? Now, do they rest on their laurels?
Way more fake 4.3s at the
I don't know, because you have a lot of guys timing you.
Because it's not the laser. It's not the laser.
But see, and that's the thing. At the combine, those supposed to be legitimate times, because it's not really handheld time.
But
to
Sean
your
Perriman
point
ran a
about-
4.25. That is, and I looked at it.
And they can't play.
I went to
Look
my
at John
phone.
Ross,
I was
bro.
like, man, there's no way you run that 4. Now
at
John
John
Ross
Ross.
he's legit. He just can't. It just doesn't
Well, they're probably
translate to the
running
field.
it, but that's my point.
Right.
It doesn't translate to the field, so that's why I'm like, show me the film.
Well, yeah, you go and add 25 pounds of pads and whatnot onto what they're.
Right, some guys
not
can't do it.
every
You have to be able
player.
to carry that. You have to be
Different
able to start
players
and stop.
perform at different levels. There's different levels of stamina.
But it helps.
At,
It helps.
at different
Speed
levels
kills.
for the players. Like
Speed
some
kills.
players, as they start to get warmed up, or as where other players get fatigued, you'll see a player like Derrick Henry get faster.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
it's hard to quantify that kind of stuff at
that's
a
real.
combine.
That's
but
real.
what I'm looking at is it's hard to
But it's good
deny
to
the
have,
fact that the NFL as a whole, it continues to get faster and faster and
Every
faster.
year, bro.
My favorite-
And that's why I started this segment by saying speed, speed, speed.
And as far as John Ross goes, let's say John Ross ended up with Andy Reid, we might be talking
Right.
about him the same way we talk about Tyreek Hill.
Exactly.
Because
Speak-
his confidence to go do the
He's with
things
the
that
Giants
Tyreek
now,
Hill
huh?
does would have been a whole lot different when he would have became the focal point of an
Yeah,
offense that was
absolutely right.
built
Great
for
point.
success for him. Which Tyreek Hill, we saw him go from being just a fast guy to all of a sudden a guy, he's going to high point balls down the football. He's going to compete like a number one wide receiver. And I don't think I saw that out of him immediately.
I mean, and then, like I said, starting and stopping, and you have to come out of your breaks. I mean, you have to know how to read coverages. So you're not always just going to be in a flat-on straight sprint, even though that helps. You want to find guys. Look at Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, who's coming off the knee injury, he's still going to go first round.
Oh, yeah.
And who played at Ohio State. I don't know if you remember that game against Clemson when they beat Clemson a couple years ago. He scored on the bomb on the touchdown.
Yeah.
And then ultimately he transferred to Bama. He would have been a top 10 pick.
He's a legit
Jameson,
guy.
Jameson Williams said, I don't care what the fastest 40 time is out of any receiver here today. Whatever that 40 time is, I'm faster than that. so I feel that. So he's still going to go in the first round. He's probably ahead of schedule. Everybody's ahead of schedule from the knee surgery.
Hey.
Of course you're not going to say you're behind schedule. The doctor is always going to tell you
Christian-
because they want to look good. So the doctor is always going to say you're ahead of schedule. But
My favorite-
supposedly he's ahead
Christian
of schedule.
Watson.
My favorite receiver in the draft is Christian Watson from North Dakota State. Look out
Jalen
for that
Burks is
guy.
nice, too. Jalen Burks is nice.
He ran 4.36, and his shows up on tape. He's a do-it-all dude.
Okay.
He can be in the backfield. He can catch passes in the slot outside. He's 6'4". He's like a 6'4" Tyreek Hill. I mean, watch out for this dude.
Okay.
I'm
For
telling
For
you
me,
right
the
now.
exciting 40-yard dashes were the big guys, the offensive
I
linemen,
know,
the
bro.
defensive linemen.
Yes.
They
You
were
get
moving,
really
bro.
excited, and particularly the offensive lineman, because I think
I
about
got a
that
stat right here
big-
for you, Eddie.
that big guard or that big tackle pulling around the end, running 4.7, 4.6, and you think about that
Bigger,
size, weight,
stronger,
and
faster.
as fast as they're moving, he's going to lay a lot of asses out. And that's what I'm looking
Well,
at when I'm looking for a big guy, especially if you're looking for that
If
power
you're
running
nasty.
game.
If you're nasty.
That
Gotta
we
be
know the
nasty.
Texans are looking to try to build here in Houston now. You got to get an offensive lineman that can move, guards that can
And as
pull,
far as-
tackles that can pull.
Yeah.
You saw what
And
Kyle
that's why they
Shanahan did
draft-
with Trent Williams.
Yes.
Those
Speed,
are the kind of
speed,
things that are
speed, and
becoming
athleticism.
a valuable asset and commodity
Because
in the
these
NFL when you
defensive
talk
tackles
about
and
the
defensive linemen are
evolution
getting
of
so
the
fast.
running game. Yeah.
These defensive tackles, defensive linemen, you look at these linebackers, they ran fast times. Nakobe Dean, I don't know who the Cowboys take. I mean, now they need a safety, even though they have Javon Curse. They need a defensive tackle. I mean, it's some things that they could use.
Brett will tell you
Malik
like The Rock.
Hooker-
It
Malik
doesn't
Hooker-
matter who they take. They're still going to suck.
No,
That's
my
what
Cowboys
Brett's
going to be
gonna-
ready next year. My Cowboys going to be ready. But here's the thing right here, Eddie.
Already.
Hell yeah, they're going to be
Ready
ready
for
next year.
what?
They better be. They better be. Hey, but check this out. Malik Hooker, I don't think he's going to be that guy that I thought he was going to be coming off an ACL and an Achilles. I just don't think he's a little heavier than I thought he would be. He doesn't have that range. Now, maybe another year removed from that, maybe he come. Now, Jerry Jones likes him as well. But I thought he would make more plays last year at that free safety position. He was always like a step behind. I'm like, that Achilles and that knee, he's not the free safety as of yet that we thought he would be. I thought he was going to be like an Ed Reed, but those injuries just
Y'all got
derailed him.
issues. Y'all got issues. Y'all
But you
gonna,
know
y'all
what?
gonna let go of Tank Lawrence.
Hey, man, let's talk some NBA, bro. Wait, no. Let's talk to quarterbacks, man. Tank Lawrence. We're not letting Tank Lawrence go.
Yeah, y'all asked him for a pay cut yesterday.
Well,
He
maybe,
said
but that's
no.
called to ascension. Well, you got Randy Gregory. You have a deep draft like I'm talking about, who they're going to probably have to sign Randy Gregory. You got Michael Parsons. They're talking about one draft, say, okay, Nakobe Dean. You can't have too many great, speedy linebackers who can cover the field. I mean, if you look at, speaking of linebackers, this is a guy out of LSU that's going to be a sleeper. Damone Clark, 6'2.5", 239, ran a 4.57. You know, so here's a guy that's a sleeper. So you have some talent coming in the draft. But quarterbacks, okay, Malik Willis. Hey, y'all stay tuned. We're definitely going to talk some NBA. We're not leaving out of here until we cover whatever we set out to cover on NBA. So stay tuned. But Eddie, the quarterbacks. What was your biggest takeaway?
Like I said, it was Malik
Willis.
Willis. I was still in the show, man. This is a guy that, of course, before I get too far into it, we could talk about, the little bitty, tiny hands.
Yeah,
Attached
that's what I hate about the
Kenny
combine.
Pickett.
I figured that's what you was alluding to, too.
And then you see him out there with
Well, let them
his,
tell it.
you see him out there with his gloves on, and you start thinking,
That's
man.
why he should've kept his
and
gloves
then you
off
start
just so
thinking,
I could rip
well,
the ball.
didn't they say Baker Mayfield had small hands,
And Michael Vick?
and now Baker? Well, hey, if Michael Vick, I think he did fine as far as
Well, here's the
living
thing.
up to his draft potential.
Yes.
You can't. I guess you
But my
can't
point
fault the
is
guy,
the way
but
they
you didn't expect him
sensationalized
going to prison in
everything
the
on
middle of
news
his
when
career.
They first started the show. Kenny Pickett has 8.5-inch hands.
Yeah,
Like,
he
who
said.
gives a damn?
We saw.
At first, I was like, is
He
that
went out
big
the
or is that
next-
small? what
It's like, hey, then they
He said they saw him eating a
then
double
you see how
whopper.
they
It looked like
cleverly-
he was holding on to Saturn.
Hey, then you see how they cleverly. Then you see how they cleverly throw Michael Vick under the smallest hand since Michael Vick. It's like, hey, do you remember on Baby Boy? Remember your boy Omar Gooden say, so what? You insinuating? What you insinuating? What you saying? It's like, okay, what are you saying? But to Kenny Pickett's credit, he went the next day. And performed. They say he has a nice presence. We know about the talent. We know about the film. And, of course, the media is going to sensationalize things because they have nothing else to do, us being a part of the media.
Adam Schefter posted that, like, man.
Well, but still, you have them old school scout heads who are sitting there in the back room
How's he
saying,
gonna
"Man,
hold the ball in cold
yeah,
weather?"
And, how can we really be confident this guy's going to be able to handle an NFL
They say
football?"
Brett Favre had big hands and he had more fumbles than any damn body.
Yeah, and more
Yeah, but
interceptions,
that's because
too.
he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off half the time. He's one of the first players that was extending plays like that. Reminds me of
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Taking a lot of sacks,
Well,
throwing a lot of
Fran
interceptions,
Tarkenton was
but
that guy too, but I know what you
scoring
wanted
a
first.
lot
Yeah.
of points.
But Pickett, they say Pickett is a guy he actually elevated his draft stock after he was throwing the ball the next day. He showed his poise, he showed accuracy, he showed enough arm strength. They like his presence. And of course in interviews, they measure these guys in interviews and see how well they perform in interviews. And from all accounts, Desmond Ridder is a guy you have to look at. Again, it's not a franchise, say, quarterback that's a surefire number one pick like a Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning or John Elway. It's
That
not
guy
type
doesn't
of player.
exist in this draft.
Right. But Malik Willis, they say he checked all the boxes.
Shooting
as
up
far as
draft
arm
boards.
strength.
You go in there,
it
you knock
is.
the Wonderlick out of the park. You perform really high in the drills. You look the part, and then you show that you are a mature and just a really good human being outside and off the
Christian.
field.
He's a Christian on Jack Easterby level.
But there it is.
Hey,
There it is.
I don't know if the Texans are willing to pull the trigger on Willis at 3,
Not at
but
3.
it wouldn't surprise me if they trade down and try to get him. But also, it wouldn't
about
surprise
Pittsburgh,
me
Eddie?
if somebody wants to trade the farm and move up and go and get Malik Willis at number 3.
Or one other scenario is if you trade Watson.
We'll talk about Kyler Murray next week.
If you trade Watson and you get multiple
And
first
Lamar
rounders
Jackson.
this year, you can reach at 3. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, like say you find a way to swing a deal with the
Well,
Giants
that's
and you
gonna
get
be
like
rebuilding
7 or
anyway.
9.
Or Eagles. Eagles
Yeah.
got 2
Well, you're
first
going to be
rounders.
rebuilding anyway.
Yeah. And
Might as well
then
bring them along with the few draft picks, the other draft picks that you get, and you have a young team, and you might as well bring them again.
I mean,
like Davis
or you
Mills.
could wait and go with Davis Mills.
I like
I'm
Davis
just
Mills,
saying,
bro.
when
I
you
like
when
Davis Mills.
I'm not sold.
I see the upside.
I'm
I
not
see the
sold.
upside. Okay, all right.
I mean,
think, hey,
I
I
could
think
be
there's
wrong,
plenty
I
of
could be wrong, but I
upside
don't
there.
see
I
it.
think there's
And
plenty of
I
upside there.
I see Andy
We've seen
Dalton,
guys
I see
with
him.
talent like Malik Willis come in, and just struggle mightily.
well, he comes from a small school at Liberty, so he's gonna have to get used to the NFL level talent. But a lot of guys can do that. Carson Wentz.
You also
first year,
you also
I don't
get
know.
the advantage of
Yeah,
now having
his
NFL
first
talent
year,
around
especially.
you, which is what you didn't have.
It depends on what
The
situation
studs
you
in
go
those
to. True that,
classes,
true
they
that.
would stand out above the other
You have
guys,
some
men
receivers.
amongst boys. It just varies from where you're going,
Where you going,
which
if you're put in
prospect
the right
is there.
situation.
He's obviously one of those guys, but let's face
And
it,
if
he
he's a
didn't
quick
have
learner-
anything around what like an SEC
Right.
offensive line or an
And he
NFL
ultimately-
offensive line is going to look like. That's not what he was
And he
protected
ultimately
by.
went to Auburn, so his talent coming out of high school was there as well. So it's not like he's a guy who's probably just ascended since he's been at Liberty. He actually started at Auburn. So
Right.
you know he has the talent. And again, like you're saying, Eddie, of course, and like I said to start the show when we were talking about it, if they're put in the right situation, they can evolve and they can really shine in whatever situation they're in. If you go
You
to
said
Pittsburgh, you
check
have receivers.
all the boxes, and that's one thing that I don't think everybody or anybody really expected Malik Willis to do that. You knew he was going to be athletic. You knew he's got a cannon of an arm. But when you go in there and you're not only knocking the Wonderlic out of the park, you're knocking all the interviews out of the park. You can't miss. Everything you swing at's going over the fence. That is what I think has all of a sudden put him up there in that top 5,
Him?
top 10.
There it is.
And you know how the closer we get to the draft, the more eager these teams get.
Yeah.
And you start
And again,
wondering what other team is plotting to move up and get this guy.
Right. Carolina may be taking a look at him because they're not sold on Sam Darnold. I was wrong about Sam Darnold. I thought he would go to Carolina and actually live up to the billing, but that's the complete opposite. They may be in the trade market to get Christian McCaffrey out of there. So they may be. And then if you look at Coach Rule, I mean, a guy like Kenny Pickett, who actually had committed to Temple when Coach Rule was actually at Temple. Now you have Malik Willis, who's in the mix right now to be a pick for the Carolina Panthers. So who knows? We all know on draft day, the draft coming up in late April, we all know what happens on draft day. And it happens every year. It's so many surprises. Rarely these draft experts, they're usually maybe 40% right on the first round.
No.
If that, 30?
No, less than that.
25? That's what I'm saying. It's always surprising.
Hey, they have good years and bad
Especially
years.
after the
Okay,
first-
'cause
especially after the first
I've
two
seen
picks.
them. I've
Listen,
seen.
Especially after the first two picks.
I've seen a draft go. I forget which one it was that would go like it was chalk, like all
Yeah,
the
the
way
first
down.
few
They had
picks.
it down to
They're like,
1 through 10.
they're like all-star hitters. They around 300, 30%
Yeah.
on their boards.
It's
too hard.
And in hitting, like I always say, you bat 300, you're doing good.
Yeah.
But so no, that's no knock against them. I mean, because usually what I do notice as well, when they project these guys to go first round and this and that, they usually go for it. Now the teams may differ sometimes because these teams throw curveballs at you. There's still a lot of vetting to go on, and guys have to continue to work out at their facility. And
Somebody moves up and gets somebody,
moves
and
up
then
and
it
gets
starts that
somebody and
run.
yeah,
It was
absolutely.
on wide receiver last
Absolutely.
year. We saw that run get kicked off.
Hey fellas, let's talk some NBA.
Let's do it.
I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, how do we go? Hey, I watched Jason Tatum the other day. I'll tell you this. I watched Jason Tatum the other day this past Sunday, and, bro, I have to apologize to Jason Tatum. I knew he was very good, the number 3 pick in the draft, and the Celtics, what they're doing right now, you have to put them in the mix. I mean, the Celtics,
If Jaylen Brown stay healthy.
if Jaylen Brown stay healthy, if they can stay healthy with Smart, but the coach, Udoka,
Yeah.
is that how you say his name?
I don't know.
eBay Udoka, but he's doing a great job. He has those guys playing defense now, and he's finally settled in, and now they're healthy. But Jason Tatum, bruh,
Yes,
I
sir.
apologize to Jason Tatum because I did not realize that his handles were that tight, for one. I did not realize he was that quick and athletic. I knew he was a baller. I knew he could play.
He's still
but
getting
Jason
better.
Tatum is a superstar.
He's still getting better.
Ascending,
Yeah.
and he's gotten better since I was like checking him out. I'm like, okay, he's good. Yeah, he's damn good. Jaylen Brown, they're damn good. And now it's going to depend on, is Jaylen Brown going to be willing to say, okay, in crunch time, the ball is going to Jason Tatum. And Jaylen Brown is a baller. He can ball. So if he's willing to do that with 2 minutes left in the game, when you come down court, you kick the ball to your horse, Jason Tatum is going to be that guy. If Jaylen Brown could get in his role and do what he has to do to go along with the way they're playing defense, now you have Robert Williams at center, so that gives you that presence on the inside. Not a legitimate scoring threat, but that can protect the rim. So it's not like they're just a guard-oriented team that has no presence down low on the inside. Robert Williams is a pogo stick, bro, and he alters everything that comes inside. He can rebound. Then you come off the bench with Tice. I mean, the other ancillary players that they have, what Boston is doing right now, but Jaylen Brown went for, how many points did he have? 54. 54 points, and playing against a team where KD had 35. So we could talk about the Nets too in a second. But what's your take, you guys take on Boston and Jason Tatum real quick?
All right. Boston, fourth best team in the West. In the East, fifth best team.
Okay.
I still think they're behind. They're behind Miami,
They're balling.
balling.
They just play as a team.
And now they're all healthy. And the Oladipo factor is going to be huge.
He scored 11 last night against the
Yeah,
Rockets.
against the Rockets.
We'll talk about the Rockets, too.
All right. And then you got Philly. I think Philly's the team to beat. I think Philly's the team to beat in the East.
I hear everybody saying that.
Harden and Harden. Let me say
Okay.
something.
Okay, let me say this.
Harden with a big man that can actually play. That doesn't need Harden to score.
You must have been
35.
watching. You must have watched the show a couple weeks ago because that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
You know, Daryl Morey dreamed of having a guy
said
like
gonna be
Joel
great, too.
Embiid. He never found that guy. He found a guy that could do one or
he
the
thought-
other.
yeah,
he
he
would
thought-
find
he thought
half
that
of
was
that
Dwight,
guy.
but it
you know,
wasn't Dwight.
and Clint Capella.
Yeah.
You know everything that he was athletically and how explosive they were together. Harden and Capella, sometime combining for 60, 70 plus points. Them two guys.
Right.
He still wasn't able to open up the lane enough for Harden to operate without getting beat to death in the paint. Embiid can do all the things that Capella
he's the leader
couldn't
in the
do.
clubhouse for
That
MVP right now.
offense
And also,
runs
through Embiid.
you know, like a rocket ship whenever you have a big man that can space like that.
And also,
a superstar big man at that.
and
A
also,
legitimate
Harden
7-1 center.
has unlocked that kid Maxey too.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you know, I said that last week as well, Brett.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, but to piggyback on what Eddie was saying about James Harden and you as well. The other week we were in here and I said the same thing. Now they definitely look like they've definitely ascended. And then you get Andre Drummond. Well, no, you get Drummond's with the Nets, but
DeAndre Jordan.
DeAndre Jordan, who I don't know, but you have Curry
Damn, man,
now. as well.
he about as old as you, Greg.
Huh?
Jordan about as old as you.
Hey, well he'll bad MF then. He'll bad MF if he on par with me. But as far as Philly, James Harden, and I love James Harden, and he's definitely made a difference for that team. Now, of course, the only thing that concerns me with them moving forward with all
Four
this
words
talent,
never come out of my mouth ever again is I love James Harden.
I love James Harden as a
still
player.
love him, too.
I mean as a player. But my thing is,
No, I
do
can't.
they have the depth? Philly, do
can't.
they have the depth?
The only thing
That pick and roll is going to be killer with them. He scored 11 last night. We know he came in happy. He lost like 10 to 15 pounds in 2 weeks. So you know he's happy, and you know he's going to be playing at a high level. He's going to put up his numbers. But what happens in the playoffs when he's not on the floor or Embiid is not on the floor? I mean, when you're playing against these teams, it's going to have time to adjust, take you out of the game. Tyrese Maxey, now he's at his comfortable position as a two-guard. He's going to be a star. You have Thibault. You have Tobias Harris. My thing is, when you play against these teams, Miami, Golden State, who we're talking about, who's reeling right now without Draymond, like I said a month back, they can't win without Draymond. But when you play against these teams, Phoenix, that throw 10 to 12 players at you with no problem, and when you're throwing multiple players at James Harden, whether it be the finals or Eastern Conference Finals, with all this depth, all these fresh legs, and you throw like Gary Payton II, just say you're playing against Golden State, is he going to be able to hold up?
Yeah. When he gets tired, dump that ball in to Big Embiid.
Well, of course.
See, he couldn't do that in Houston.
But
he
yeah.
couldn't do that in Brooklyn.
You
One of
couldn't
those
get the
two
ball
guys
in the
gonna be
hands of
enough
Capella without
to ultimately
he
win
couldn't
the
put it on the
championship. You
floor.
gotta remember, Giannis is still there. Giannis and the Bucks are still there as well. So my only question is, of course, they're gonna finish the regular season great. I think they're gonna win a lot of games in the playoffs. I still don't think they're the team to ultimately win the championship because I just don't think they have the necessary depth. And you know James Harden, once he feels the load is all on him, and he'll start taking 20, 25 shots.
He don't have a load
But
on
I'm
him.
saying,
He
though,
got an MVP.
I get that. But what I'm saying is, though, he might be a little more rested. But other than them two guys who you know are going to show up, yeah, we know about Tyrese Maxey and the upside. But the depth with that second unit coming off the bench, when those guys have to sit down, is it ultimately going to be enough against teams that have tremendous depth? That's my only question now. As far as those two guys, how they're going to do in the pick and roll, Joel Embiid still may win the MVP. James Harden is going to have his flirt with his triple doubles and all this and that. I still don't know if ultimately that's going to be enough to actually win the championship, but we will see. That's why they play the games. Milwaukee.
Look, it's gonna come down. It's gonna come down to how they play defense as well too.
That's-
Defense is gonna play a big part of
That's
it.
the key in the playoffs,
I
period.
think they're poised, to make a run at it. But the reason why I agree with you, Greg, would be because James Harden has never shown me championship heart. He's just never shown me the ability to have his best game when
When
you
it
need
matters.
it most.
Yeah.
And he had plenty of opportunities here in Houston.
He had Dwight
And you
Howard
can't
for a
say
while.
that they
Chris
didn't do
Paul.
everything they could to try to put a squad around him. They put shooters around him. They put the biggest guys they could find around him. They did what they could to make the best team they could. And they got to the brink. but they never got over the hump. And a lot of that had to do with James Harden coming up small in some of the biggest moments.
Tired, legs dead.
Until he,
it's just those two now,
whatever
really,
reason, but
legitimately.
I'm just saying
matchup,
James Harden. You can go, Brett. You've watched as much Rockets basketball as I have. You go back and find me that LeBron James moment, like whenever he made that turnaround 3-pointer, and I think it was Game 5 against the Magic when he was in Cleveland to seal the deal. Show me one of those moments from James Harden in a big playoff game. He had plenty of opportunities. You know what? I watched enough of James Harden to know that if he was going to make a shot or shoot a 3-pointer with the game tied and it was going to be for the win, most of the time he was going to brick it. Why? I don't know.
No.
How many
And they're not
times?
giving him
How
all
many
these
times
balls
was James
anymore.
Harden
He's not-
on the free throw
He's not
line?
walking to the free throw line.
How many times has he been on the free throw line? Needed 2 to seal the deal, but he only gets 1, and he's one of the best free throw shooters. And there's been,
Okay,
I can tell you, in the
every big
playoffs
game-
against
every
Golden
big
State,
game
that
that-
exact scenario played out, and it
Every-
hurt the Rockets because the 3-pointer ended up tying the game on the next possession.
Every big game Harden has been in the playoffs, his team was the underdog. Except the only thing that I could say, maybe the Spurs in 2017, something like that. Yeah, I think that Spurs series, that was awful. Okay, I think he had a concussion, but I'm not. I almost sound like I'm making an excuse. But every time going against Golden State, underdog every year, they had a Golden State on the ropes when Chris Paul popped his hammy, right? And then he went into the Rockets had a
Yeah,
Yeah,
but think about
that
that Game
game.
5. I was
Golden
at that
State
Game
came
5
out
on
the
my
second half and
birthday.
said,
Chris
Yeah.
Paul led them to victory. He willed them to victory in a 99-98, or was it 98-96 victory? It was a very tight game that James Harden couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but Chris Paul kept that team focused on defense, and he kept making big shots, getting a tough bucket, whether it be a 2
That's
or a
what he
3
was there
when they
for.
needed. I know, but it was because he had to shoulder that big load and ended up popping his hamstring because James Harden was having one of his worst shooting nights of the
I don't know
postseason.
about that. No,
Go back and look at it. I was there,
Well, the
and I might have
Rockets-
had a buzz, but I'm telling
talking
you,
about
I
the
knew what was going on
You
in
talking about
Game
the Rockets
5.
against Golden State?
Yes,
Yeah.
Game
But they-
5.
Well, you know what, too, that happened in that game, and I hate to spoil the party right here, and I said it at halftime. And I jumped on Golden State bandwagon at that time. I mean, of course, I was, when the Rockets and the King was there, I was big time. But
It was Eric
when
Gordon
they
who,
came out in the
who
second
made
half,
the big
Golden
shots,
State
not
was
Harden.
like, no, you guys are not going to beat us. So I think Golden State was ultimately going to win that game. But the Chris Paul injury did hurt. And the Rockets missed, like 27
Well,
threes?
yeah, I'm
But I know what you're talking about.
when
But
we're talking
James
about Game
Harden,
5. Like,
I know.
Clearly, I mean, in Game 5, it was the Chris Paul
Which game
show.
was that when they missed all those shots?
That was Game
That
6.
was game
Okay,
seven.
Game
That was
six.
game 7.
That was okay.
Game
But-
6 we got blown
but
out.
ultimately,
Yeah, I thought that
7.
was Game 6.
ultimately, in that
Game
second half
7,
of that game.
Trevor Reason went 0 for 12.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
James Harden, before we move on, because I want to get y'all take on the Nets and KD as well. Of course, LeBron put up 56 the other day, but the Lakers are going nowhere. But what this guy is doing at 37 years old is nothing short of amazing. I've been singing his praises all year. But unfortunately, the Lakers are not going to be that team this year to make it to the finals for him to get his 5th ring. But
Not this year.
James Harden, I think James Harden, Joel Embiid, and to your point, and I agree with that. That goes without saying. It's nobody that can stop Joel Embiid, even in the playoffs. He's going to get guys in foul trouble and things of that sort. I just worry about their depth once it gets to the latter part of the playoffs.
Well, because
And
we've seen the Rockets before. You're
to
familiar
the
with
point of what
Houston,
we're saying.
where they were built top heavy. Where if you weren't getting big games from your big man and from James Harden, then where was the offense going to come from?
Yeah.
You find yourself in
What you
a
guys think?
stagnant sense of existence on your offense because James Harden can't get going for whatever reason, and then you can't. Slow it down and run a half set because your big man can't handle the basketball.
And he has a very
They're
high
not going to have
usage.
that problem here in Philly because of how good Joel
Well, you
Embiid
think
is.
about-
But I can understand being
think
worried
about-
about it because we've seen
Well, you-
that be what drags
Yeah.
the Rockets
And you
down
think
in the past, running the same offense.
Right. And then you think about, of course, with Daryl Morey and this, but you think about great tandems, center and guard like that. That's probably the most prolific tandem like that, of course, since Shaq.
Oh,
and Kobe.
it's a
Kobe and
match
Shaq.
made in
It's
heaven.
a
I
match
mean,
made in heaven.
I'm
But
telling
the
you,
thing about
Daryl
it is-
Morey's got to
let me
be
say
feeling
one
like the
second.
cat that ate the canary.
Right. But the thing about those teams where when you had Shaq and Kobe, the thing about those teams with the Lakers were they had tremendous depth. I mean, that second unit can come in and work. So I think they had more overall talent.
But
and
you
I
know
just
what,
think
Greg?
it's so much talent in the NBA, not just the West this year. The East may be the strongest conference. And you got to look at Giannis in the Bucks. They're getting healthy now. Giannis is a man playing with boys. I watch him Sunday. I mean, I watch him all the time. But Giannis he literally seems like a man playing with boys out there.
He
Chris
has
Middleton
always seemed that way.
Yeah,
but I
you
do
get
want
Chris
to touch
Middleton.
on what you said there about with Shaq and Kobe, and one of the reasons why I think they were so dominant, and you don't
And then
see
you had
this.
Phil Jackson as well.
You don't
I
see
like Doc,
this
but-
in today's NBA, and that's why what the point I'm about to make here is one of the reasons why some of these superstar teams that they put together, this three-headed monster they put together in Brooklyn and whatnot, you don't see that work out as often because I feel like a lot of these guys don't have the same competitive nature as the guys we just mentioned, and like Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, because those two guys, even though they played on the same team, they had a healthy level of competitiveness that lived between both of them, and they let that drive them to be better. Nowadays, these guys will start to compete with each other, and then they'll seclude themselves, they'll isolate themselves. There'll be a
they're
division
too
in the
buddy
locker
with
room.
each other.
And don't get me wrong, eventually Kobe and Shaq did have to go their
Right.
separate ways.
Right.
But
Because they were really so much alike.
you know what? Yeah,
to be able
but
to tell you the truth.
to go and win a
Spoiled them.
championship or to do what they did and perform the way they did, it's because they were able to feed off that competitiveness. Yeah, I want to be the best player on my team, but not at the expense of the team. I'm gonna try to do my best to be better than Kobe, but not at the expense of the Lakers. And nowadays, I feel like you just don't see
Well,
players doing that,
well,
and
I
that's
mean,
why
too-
these super teams aren't necessarily working. There you go, Brooklyn Nets.
Well, I mean, speaking of the Brooklyn Nets, nice segue into the Brooklyn Nets. But, I mean, it's so much going on with social media these days. Guys' attention span is social media this, social media that. Let me tweet this, let me tweet that. And so the old school throwback player is not really there anymore. Unless you're talking about guys like LeBron, who, like I said, the last time we were on the show, here's a guy that goes out every night. He's a traditionalist. He knows that people are buying tickets to come see him. So he's not going to take any nights off. He's a guy who knows his legacy, and he wants to give the fans
LeBron
what they
load
want.
manages. He load manages. Not like on Kawhi Leonard, but he load manages.
Yeah, I mean, at 37, but not nowhere near like Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
LeBron brings it every night when he's playing, but I think some of the load management now is his knee being sore. So maybe sometimes, but the guy is special, man. The guy, I mean, top 2 or 3 player in the NBA of all time, in my opinion, even though my favorite player is Kobe being Bryant. But the thing about it is you have these teams, okay, the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I still say it, and I'm not going to bash Kyrie right here about not getting vaccinated. That's his decision. I did it a few weeks ago, about a month ago. And the thing about it, do you think, and people wonder and people ask, okay, is it Kyrie's fault? Is it Ben Simmons' fault? You know what? For where the Brooklyn Nets are sitting right now, that's Kyrie's damn fault, in my opinion, because you can't tell me that he's playing every other game. You can't tell me that they would not be able to have a better record if you had Kyrie and even James Harden until he left. And of course, James Harden got disgruntled after a while because he got tired of seeing that. Okay, I'm not going to play, or I can't, or this guy can't play. We can't have our players together. They have to find some kind of chemistry. But Kyrie, you have games that they probably could have won this season where they would be putting themselves in a better position where KD doesn't have to come back and be the savior for the team if his ass would have been on the damn team. KD, if you look at the game the other day when they lost, when Kyrie only had 11 points. Again, I love Kyrie Irving, special talent, but that's what I'm talking about. When you get in these games against these elite, talented teams that has tremendous wing players, and you're a 6'1" guard, yeah, you have tremendous handles, and you can finish at the cup, but it's not like you're 6'7", or you're a Kobe, or you're a LeBron, or you're a high wire act that can really just jump over people and do your thing and make things happen like that. Kyrie can't be contained if you throw the right bodies at him, and that's what happened the other day. Now, he may come back tonight or whenever they play and have 50. I get that. But in the playoffs, he's not going to be able to play at home. But the Brooklyn Nets are solely where they are, in my opinion, and we can talk about Ben Simmons here in a second too, because Kyrie Irving has them in this position because, for one, the team couldn't gain any chemistry, whether they had KD or they had James Harden. They couldn't gain any chemistry. So you have him in one day playing the game. Then if you're his teammate, you don't see him the next day. So what kind of chemistry are you going to build, and you don't know when this guy is going to be able to play, or he's going to be able to play every other game. So you have losses that you've accrued because of that. Then if you look at the game the other day, man, KD, now I hear people talking about how KD probably should have guarded Tatum in that situation. They played, I was thinking about Giannis right there, but probably should have guarded Tatum in that situation. But yeah, if you look at it, KD is just coming back from a knee injury. And yeah, if I'm KD and it's the playoffs, I would be like, give me him right there. But KD was trying to save something. He at least should have got on him a few possessions. But you look at KD when that game was finalized and he walked right into the tunnel. He didn't go shake hands or none of that. Kyrie went and gave everybody hugs, people he knew on the side, which is cool. And I say this stuff about Kyrie. He seems like a cool guy. It's obvious that his teammates and stuff, they actually like him as a person. He seems like a cool guy, even though he doesn't seem to lead by example and he is selfish. But he seems like a guy who can keep you at bay because he's going to say all the right things and he's going to be this guy when you watch him in the media. He's going to disarm you when he speaks because he's going to say something that's compelling. Or you be like, oh, okay, he's cool. But that's a bunch of bullshit. Kyrie should have had his ass out there playing and he should have, I don't want no excuses about this, about that. That's why the Brooklyn Nets, you look at KD when that game ended and when they were at the free throw line, he looked back at the clock and it's almost like Brett, he looked up and said a prayer. You remember good times. It almost looked like he pulled a Florida Evans. Like he was like, what in the hell am I doing? Shit, remember Florida? Yeah. Every time Michael was about to get a whooping by James, she'll have a dish her dish rag, she'll put her dish rag down. Lord, please let James Evans Sr.'s belt be soft and let Michael's bottom be tough. And then she'll say some shit like, and please let JJ graduate to 12th grade. But we know you got JJ in the palm of your hands. But my point is, it seems like KD was saying a prayer or saying something like, I didn't sign up for this shit.
What it boils down to, I think basketball is not the highest priority on Kyrie Irving.
There it is.
It might not even be top five.
I've been saying this, and
Yeah.
to me, that's why it's not Kyrie Irving's fault. To me, I would lay the blame, at the feet of Sean Marks, the general manager,
For putting it all together?
For putting that all together. It's like Kyrie Irving is like an aggressive dog that already
Kyrie's
bit
fault.
somebody. Okay, you want to go adopt that dog, go right ahead. But when that dog bites you, don't be mad at us because we warned you.
And we
Kyrie
always
Irving
have
has
to talk
clearly,
down on Kyrie.
he's
In
got a
Boston,
history
everywhere.
of biting.
We talked about him in Boston
And now the
same
Nets
way.
are bit by Kyrie Irving for whatever the
KD
reason
signed
may
up to
be.
go there
You know what I mean, Greg?
play with
Whatever
Kyrie.
the reason
Yeah,
is, it
we're
doesn't
speculating.
matter.
Well, we're
It's
not
still
speculating
an
about him not getting
issue.
vaccinated.
And you
Ben
gotta
Simmons?
be mad at Sean Marks.
Ben Simmons? I mean, where is he right now? Okay, it's a back injury. That may be damaged goods if it's like
The
that.
thing about it is that Marks
gotta
put
help him on
Marks put
defense.
himself in a position where he had to take on Simmons. He
Playmaker,
had to
this and
trade
that.
Harden where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
He totally screwed himself in the whole deal. Whenever he had KD, and you could have taken this thing any way you want to go, build around KD. Instead, you chose to go with Kyrie Irving. You traded a boatload of picks to get James Harden, and then now both those guys are looking like they're on the. Harden's gone. Kyrie's on the outs eventually. The whole thing blew up in your face, and now you've got nothing to replenish the cupboard with, and help try to build
Ben
around
Simmons, we'll see what
to
happens.
help try to build.
He's such a bad boy. Let's not get this twisted.
I'm just saying he
Let's not get
he
this
backed
twisted.
himself into a corner there
He
because
did.
this could have worked out way better.
Now you have Harden
You can't
gone.
tell me in the beginning of that if somebody told you, they're going to end up with KD
you
and
know
Ben
what
Simmons
also?
being the corner pieces of the franchise
see?
going forward, they would laugh us out of the
Well,
building. There's no
here's
way
the
you
thing
let
with
that happen.
Eddie, and the thing about it not working in Brooklyn as well, so you have to think about it too. With Harden and Embiid, you have a low post player and you have a guard, a wing player. With Kobe and Shaq, same thing.
I know where you're
You
going.
had
You're
three
saying it's a
wing players.
basketball problem, though. It's not a basketball problem.
No, I'm not.
It's
Shit,
not
I'm
an
saying
on-the-court
it's a personal problem
issue.
With the fact, that's my point about Kyrie not getting vaccinated, getting his ass in the building and playing. But again, he kept them at bay with this, disarmed everybody with how smooth he is in his conversations. But bro, you have to take one for the team, man. And I think he put his team in a precarious situation. Now you have to depend on KD to get you out of that situation. Ben Simmons, he's not going to shoot the basketball. He's going to be a playmaker when he gets back if he's healthy. He's going to play some defense. So make no mistake about it, though, about the Nets. If they can make it to the playoffs now. If they can make it to the playoffs with KD, I'm a big-time KD fan. You know how I feel about KD, so anything is possible.
Now,
I know Kyrie
Yeah,
can
the
go
deck's
off.
just
The Heat
stacked
look
against
good.
you, because you got to
It
admit
is.
that
And
roster
he
is
can't
no
even play
longer as
he
good
can't
as
even
the
play in
top
New
tier
York.
rosters in the East anymore. It's not there.
And Kyrie can't even play in New York.
But
this is what KD signed up for?
right.
That's why he was looking like he was saying, like, what the go ahead.
I'm loving what's going on in Brooklyn right now. But here's some facts. Okay, the Nets are tied with the Rockets in the NBA for the worst record, 3-17 over the last 20 games. All right, I'm chilling because I want the Nets to stay out of and miss
the Rockets get another spot
the
in the
Rockets get
draft.
because the Rockets
I want
own
the
that.
Rockets to get Chet Holmgren,
They own the Nets pick.
do it.
They own
Thank
the
you.
Nets pick in swaps for 23, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. So all those years. So
Speaking of the Rockets.
so now you look at
After we
you look at this. If the Nets have a disaster season, Kyrie has an option. He can opt out next year, which a lot of people think that he might opt out and retire. Now you left with
I wouldn't be surprised with that.
now you left with KD and Ben Simmons, who comes back and if he's not very flattering to KD,
Got Joe Harris out.
the next step will be for KD to ask for a trade. And once he's gone, Brooklyn crumbles.
They will.
And we get all
may
them
be
picks.
crumbling now.
And we get all them
Okay.
picks.
Speaking of
Rockets
the
looking good.
Speaking of the Rockets, and speaking of the Nets real quick, I love what Bruce Brown can bring them. Now, I don't know how consistent it'll be in the playoffs, but again, KD, the best player in the game when he's healthy, in my opinion. And what he can do, find his spots on the floor, that's what most of these guys, I watched Jalen Green play, who I think is special, has scored 20 points, 6 out of the last 8 games.
Yeah.
6 out of the last, the guy is going to be special. He reminds me of Kobe.
Absolutely.
And you know he's going to turn it up on the defensive side because he's that athletic. But these guys need to concentrate on that mid-range game more. Look at KD. Of course, he's 7 foot tall. But his handles, and I'm going to say this before y'all laugh at me, though. Chet Holmgren, he's not as quick as KD. But, hey, I'm telling you, bro, he kind of, with this guard-type skills, and plus he's a protector at the rim. He's a true, legitimate shot blocker, but he can play out on that perimeter, shoot the three. If he really patterned his game after KD, I kind of see some similarities, but they have to work on that mid-range game. KD, man, the way he can get to his spots on the floor, dribble that ball, and pull up from any spot on the floor, but that mid-range game is crucial.
And you're right. I don't compare him to KD because he's not as athletic as KD, but I compare
he's
him.
athletic, though.
But I compare him
And
to
he's
one
a
of
dog,
the.
too.
I compare Chet to like one of the greatest mid-range shooters of all time. That's Dirk Nowitzki.
There it is.
And now,
That's good.
Now,
That's good.
my eyes look at him. It tells me, man, Chet can be a Dirk with defense. A Dirk with
And he's
defense.
tough.
And I'll be like,
And he's gotten better as the year went on. He's only going to get stronger.
He can rim protect and he can rebound.
He can run the floor. He can
And,
shoot the three. He
yeah,
can cross
and
you
I'm
over.
like,
He can
and
have the rock.
that makes me want. But it scares me about him, man. But he's 195 pounds.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
but here's the thing, Brett, before we let Eddie chime in, he's actually put on weight since the season started.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed since the season started as well, watching him, now he feels like he belongs. He feels like he's the number 1 high school player. He was the number 1 high school player in the nation last year, and he's going to be the first pick in the draft. But this guy right here, man, in my opinion, if he goes to the Rockets, I really like that. I like the way Christian Wood is playing right now. But the Rockets are playing a lot better, Eddie Cox, Brett Thompson. They're playing a lot better, even though they've only won 1 game in the last 13 games.
Yeah, I
but
was
they're
gonna say that
competing.
after 12 in a row.
But they're in most of these games, and they're competing.
We don't
and
know
they're
how to
playing
win.
smarter. They're not turning the ball over as much. So, do you
Right.
still think that our boy is the head coach for the future? What do you guys think about the Rockets moving forward?
You go first, Eddie.
You know where I stand on this. For me, I say no. For me, you've got to get like a veteran, a guy that's older, a more of an authoritarian head coach, a guy that can teach these guys how to play team basketball. You get a guy that's more of a player's coach in there, and to me, it doesn't work. You've got guys that are in the very beginning of their NBA careers, and they're with a team that is rebuilding this entire franchise around this group of guys. Around Jalen Green, around Jason Tate. You've got Kevin Porter Jr., who you're able to be lucky enough to get a prospect like that for how you got him, and you got to figure out how to make this thing work. Clearly, the talent's there because you see at stretches they're able to sort of put it to some of these teams with their offensive aggressiveness and some of the things they're able to do on defense, but it's not consistent. There's no consistency there, and I think about a guy like, I've brought this up before on the show. I think about a guy like a Jeff Van Gundy. You think about how they would start to play defense and how they'd start to play team basketball if they had a guy like JVG as their coach. So to answer your question, no, Silas isn't the guy going forward. I think he's got a future as an NBA head coach. I just don't think it's here in Houston. I think you get him around some veterans where you've already got a bona fide superstar, and, and you can build around that, similar to what he had in Dallas. I've said this before as well. With a guy like Luka, I think he'll do just fine. I think he's a player's coach, but I just don't think a guy as mild-tempered and mild-mannered as Silas is. I just think you need somebody with a little bit more experience, a little more skins on the wall, and somebody who these players are going to look up to as an authoritative figure, and maybe not necessarily somebody who's on their level.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna take the other side of the spectrum on this one, Eddie. Like I like Silas.
He's getting better.
I like everything
With
he
the help
brings.
of John Lucas.
I like what he brings to the table. Yeah, John Lucas is the developmental guy. He's the reason why Jalen Green's jumper is crispy.
Absolutely,
absolutely. And Kevin Porter Jr. is starting to make some strides too. He's starting to make.
Let me speak to that, and then.
All right. Let me get.
You got to remember, point guards like quarterbacks, so it takes them a little longer to develop.
Right. You're right about that. I like
Silas.
What I like about Silas is, man, he reminds me of a young Eric Spoelstra. And when Spoelstra took over Miami after they traded Shaq and got rid of him, he had a young Dwayne Wade, and he built them guys. And Dwayne Wade trusted him because Spoelstra was on the staff and everything, and he got Dwayne Wade's jumper right. Now, okay, that's what I see in Silas. A lot of people get upset about, like, I'm in my Rockets forums and groups. People mad because Silas doesn't get mad and yell and throw chairs and stuff like that. I mean, that's not necessary to be a good coach.
Effective.
All right.
You can be effective. But
Silas is learning too. I mean, the rotation. Think about the rotation at the beginning of the year. He had 12 dudes playing 6 minutes a game. Yeah. Now he has his rotation down. You know what I'm saying? And now I look at the different, and I look at guys develop, and he's developing guys. These guys are getting better. Jalen Green, he's getting to the point, like he's just now getting on regular milk. You know what I'm saying? He's been on Similac. Yeah. So he's bringing them along slowly. He doesn't need 20 shots a game. He doesn't need 20 shots a game. Harden didn't get 20 shots a game until he won MVP in 2018. So basically, man, let him trust the process.
Grow with him.
Yeah, let them trust the process. You look at my last point. This team is who they are. I don't care what coach you have here. You bring in Greg Popovich. Look at Greg Popovich got 25 wins this year. 25 and 40. Okay, over there, and he's the second GOAT coach all time.
And he shows,
so you can't tell me. So if you had Popovich here, this team wouldn't be much better.
No.
It wouldn't be any better.
Go ahead, Greg, and I'll respond to that.
Okay, well, the thing about it is, and when the season first started, the first part of the season, I was on par with what Eddie is saying about he's just not the guy because it seems like he doesn't hold these guys accountable. Because what I was seeing, now I'm kind of like, I don't know, because I've seen some growth, but I wasn't seeing him holding these guys accountable, and I wasn't seeing any growth. They were making the same mental mistakes every game, and it just went on and went on and went on. Now, granted, it's a young team, and that's going to happen, but I didn't see any kind of consistency or the will. At first, I didn't see the will to play team ball. Everything was one-on-one. You get yours, I get mine. Christian Wood, okay, it's your time. And then your boy KPJ, Kevin Porter Jr., to your point about he's gotten better. And I listened to him in an interview not too long ago, and he's saying, and he said himself that he feels like he's made some strides because now he's seeing the game better, and he's realizing when he has to pick his spots and be a scorer or score first point guard, or when he has to get his players involved, his other teammates involved. Because I'll be honest, for a long time, I thought they were freezing Jalen Green out way too much. And I'm like, bro, he's the second pick in the draft. This is your future franchise over here. Granted, all these other players, Josh Christopher, all these other players, they're trying to make their mark as well. But I didn't think Silas did a good job at first of, okay, this is who we're going to run the offense through. Of course, it has to be team ball. But I just thought way too often they didn't run the plays at the necessary times for him to really let him elevate his game. Now he has the last 6 to 8 games with the help of John Lucas, like we were talking about as well. But I think Silas, to your point, I think he's learned in the process, and he's learned. That's why I say, man, you go through some things, and of course you learn from those mistakes. If you apply what you've learned, that's when you get better. But you can learn some things as a coach, as a player, as a person. You can learn some things and know all the right things you should be doing or should be trying. But if you don't apply them, I mean, what's the
What's the biggest
what's the
biggest
definition of
problem?
insanity? But I like the growth that I
Yeah, you're right. What's the biggest problems on this?
The
The biggest problems on this team was basically turnovers, missed free throws, and field goal percentage. Those are telltale signs of a young team. Their problems aren't that, and they don't hit the glass because they don't have size. It's not because they're not coached to hit the glass. It's because
I see the competitiveness going on too now.
Right.
Well,
Wood is undersized, and Şengün is 19. You know
Bro,
what I'm saying?
Şengün is the best move that Silas has made so far.
I like that. I like
Putting
that.
him in the game more.
He's still, you're right. But
Jalen Green and Şengün, in my opinion,
Well, the
is
James
the
Harden
foundation.
trade may end up being the best move Rafael Stone has made so far.
But like,
Şengün's gonna be a bad boy.
Go ahead.
That's a Jokic type player, eventually.
Şengün is learning so much more. It's because, like, in the beginning, he used to be in foul trouble every game. Every game. Now you see his footwork is better because he's working with Dream. Footwork, and he's getting in legal guarding position a lot better, and he's staying in there, staying straight up and staying vertical, and not getting as many fouls. So that's that's growth. That's growth. Christopher, we see him growing before our eyes.
He's a nice player.
Right.
He's a nice player.
Stone.
Depth too.
Yeah. Stone hit home runs on his draft.
Yes.
Hit home runs on his
Bro,
draft.
they have
look,
depth. I like watching the Rockets because I see where they're going to ascend to, and I see where the depth that they have on that team and the talent is unquestioned.
Look,
you get a
you're
great
mentioning
draft
talent.
pick.
I think they should just be a better team than they are right now. And I do mention.
We'll see how they finish the season.
I understand what
Trust
you're
the
saying.
process.
Look, I understand what you're saying, Brett, about
But you have to get
you
better
bring
on
in Popovich. How much better of a team are they right now? Probably not that much better. But let me tell you something. This scenario here in Houston, this situation, it's unique. There's not very many teams around the NBA that have this young of a core of guys, and it's because of the fire sale that Houston has gone on over the past couple
19,
years,
20-year-olds.
getting rid of Capella, getting rid of Harden. There's no it doesn't surprise me, I should say, to see that the Rockets are showing more noticeable growth now here over the last, let's say, 8 games or so than they had earlier in the season. It's because they didn't have a head coach, in my opinion, who could get inside these young players' heads and keep them focused and say, hey, look, there's going to be trade talks. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on. I need to keep you guys focused on becoming the best group of guys y'all can. I can't worry about if Wood's going to be here tomorrow or the next day because we don't win that way. And you got to be able to connect with these players on this team like that because let's face it, the Rockets are going to be one of those teams every year before the trade deadline. There's going to be talk about Wood. There's going to be talk about how they can upgrade this, that, and the other. There's going to be all those talks. You need a coach who can get inside these players' head and keep them focused. That's the only reason why I say you bring another guy in. It doesn't make them better immediately right now. I think it makes them better for the long run and how they develop and how they come along mentally as basketball players and as a
that's
team.
what I'm saying. And see, I think that's what Brett is saying as well. And that's what I'm saying as well. Now I'm kind of like, okay, I've seen how they've ascended, and I've seen now that he's holding these guys accountable. I see them playing better team basketball now. I see them paying more attention to get Jalen Green the ball and make sure his game really take the number 2 pick in the draft.
Well, the trade distraction and all that, it's off the table
main
now.
thing is they're competing on the defensive end. And Eddie, you heard me, right? So you're saying they're mentally in a better place right now. But I don't know if that was so much the case. I'm sure it has something to do with it. But the fact of the matter is these guys had to buy into the fact that the only way you get better is to cut down on the mistakes, but you start by playing tenacious defense.
And
I mean,
they're
that's what
still
you
not there yet.
Especially,
that's what I
but
feel
they're
like
better.
causes a big problem for the
They're
Rockets
competing.
that
They're
Christian
competing.
Wood won't play defense like a true center.
They
And
have
you know
laps.
that's causing a problem
They have
because
laps.
the reality is Şengün is probably better at being an actual center than Wood is
like
because
Şengün.
Wood won't turn it on.
Yeah.
But if he just would, because some of the times
But it seems like
if Wood
would
just
you agree
would,
that they're competing a little bit more. on the
you
defensive
see
end?
them both on the court, and you see Şengün, he's out hustling Wood, and
I know,
that
right?
it bothers me because Christian Wood, if he could turn it up on defense, become that
Wood is
true
an
center
attitude
that the
type of
Rockets
guy.
need,
I think he gets traded
What is
this
the
summer.
they'll
attitude type
start
of guy?
flourishing.
He
I think he
probably
traded
gets
this
traded.
summer.
And again, if you get somebody like Chet Holmgren to pair with Jalen Green and Şengün, but I don't think. they're
Greg
gonna
Greg
go
is just draft horny right now.
Hey,
He's
man.
draft horny
Hey,
for the
bro.
NFL draft.
Yeah,
He's
how do you
draft
feel
horny.
about
He's draft horny for the NBA draft.
Hey man, I'm a sports fanatic.
What
And
about-
I'm gonna tell you again.
I know you like Holmgren and
Holmgren
Banchero.
hunkered down.
What
He's
about
becoming better player.
what about Jabari Smith from
I
Auburn?
like him at Auburn, 6'10", kicking ball.
Rim protector.
But
Yeah,
I'm talking about a guy that fits today's game, a 7-foot center who's nowhere near his upside as a player. And again, the way he's hunkered down since the season has started, I've seen the growth from Chet Holmgren. I've seen him get his body stronger. And I've seen him elevate. And he has an all-around game that I think can be special. And what I really was watching for when I've been watching him play, now he feels like that guy. He's competitive. He doesn't shy away. He doesn't shy away from contact. He's always down there trying to get rebounds, trying to block shots. I like the guy a lot, man. I think he's going to be better.
I want to see him show improvement in the place. I want to see him show up in the tournament.
Well, that's very important, and I want to see that in the tournament as well. I don't think Gonzaga is going to do anything in the tournament. We know that. You have Drew Timme and those guys. And as far as college basketball, real quick, a lot of these teams, I mean, you never know who's going to win on any given day. But I like Pancaro, but real quick, the
Hey,
Mavericks.
got to get behind my Cougars,
and
I got to get behind some
the
Texas
Cougars.
Tech.
The Cougars
I love
are
riding
good.
with the Texas teams for the tournament, so
Hey, the
they're
Cougars
definitely going to
looking
make it
good,
exciting. Tech could make a run. I know they're
could,
really
Eddie.
strong this year.
Auburn, I like that guy Jabari Smith you're talking about. I like him a lot. But it's so many teams and you know March Madness. Anything can happen. So I'm not picking Gonzaga to win it all by no stretch of the imagination. But Auburn looks good. I mean, Duke is always. I like some of the freshmen they have at Duke. You never know who's going to show up and shine in the tournament.
Also, when you think
But real
about
quick, you
Coach
look at the
K,
Mavericks,
he's on
Eddie.
his swan song, right?
I know, right? Hey,
That would be something if they were able to put a run together.
absolutely.
All right,
But
now
the thing about it is-
can we get back to the NBA? Can we talk about the West? We talked about.
I want to talk about the Mavericks. I was going to go there.
All right.
Real quick.
What you got?
All right. In the West, Phoenix, even with Chris Paul injury, Booker being in and out, I think they're the team to beat to come out the West.
They're loaded.
I don't.
That's a deep team, bro.
Hey, they were my pick at the
Two
beginning
te-
of the year.
Tremendous depth.
You're right. Two teams I don't believe in.
How bad did the Rockets screw up
I
trading
still
away
say
Chris
Golden
Paul?
State with healthy.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, it's easy to say. You know what, Eddie? I'm glad you said that. But you know what? The Chris Paul for Westbrook trade. Not one person complained about that trade
At the time.
At that time, because Chris Paul looked washed after the 19th season. I mean, it's easy to go back. If we don't make that trade, we win the bubble year, and we probably win last year. We probably went back to back. So with Paul, but Harden forced that trade. We know what
You know the
happened
thing
and
with
everything.
Phoenix, though?
You like to
But I like
sneak
Phoenix.
that speculatory stuff
the
in
thing
at the
with
very
Phoenix?
end. Yeah, we'd have won both them years,
We
back to
would've
back
won both.
again.
Both
Brett,
because we would have been the only team in the West coming back with everybody.
Yeah. You know the thing with Phoenix, bro? And they're a great team. And missed an opportunity last year. Of course, Giannis was too much at the end of the day. They have
I mean, what are they? They're
tremendous-
500 since Paul's gone down. I think
But the
are
thing
they
about
3 and
them
3?
is, the thing about them is what clouds me with Phoenix is it always puts me in the mind of Phoenix back in the day where they had the great Charles Barkley, Dan Marley. They had a great point guard in Kevin Johnson. Now, granted, this is back in the day when the Rockets, but they would win 60, 70 games. Well, not 70, but have a great regular season, have all this depth, have all this speed, high scoring. I mean, just a joy to watch. Then they would get in the playoffs and just could not get it done. Of course, the Rockets and the King was the roadblock.
Akeem
But I always
and
look at
Jordan
Phoenix-
knocked them out.
I always look at Phoenix as a team like that. Now, you have DeAndre Ayton. You have DeAndre Ayton right there. And, bro, I mean, Phoenix is there. They're a team. I can't argue with that. They're very loaded as well. Is Chris Paul? What's going to happen in the playoffs? Devin Booker is a beast. So I can't argue with that. I still pick Golden State.
I don't
If
believe in Golden State.
if Draymond gets back, and because you have to look at right now what's going on
They're
with
supposed
Golden
to come
State
back
as well.
Monday.
Okay, so it's going to help on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, he's the defensive anchor. He's the attitude for that team. But not only what he does on the defensive side of the ball, what he brings them on the offensive side of the ball, he's their point forward. He gets everybody set up, everybody involved. He gets Klay great touches. He gets Steph great touches. I just think this team is treading water right now. I think when Draymond gets back, Wiseman gets back.
Let me tell you.
Iguodala. You have to think about Iguodala as well. People talking about Draymond.
Damn, he's old as hell too.
Hey, but he's a bad MF though for what they need him to do. They need him to be that point forward and to be that guy with that experience that helps out the locker room.
One
Iguodala
factor.
is somebody that's flying under the radar.
One factor you failed to mention is the Klay Thompson
You got
factor.
something against age, don't you? He talking about everybody
yeah.
with some age.
Well, I'm
And-
just like, damn. I
No,
mean,
no,
when you
no,
think
that's
about
what-
him coming back, the impact he's going to make,
You
he's
gotta
going to make
remember
a
Tom Brady.
small
You gotta
impact,
remember
though, at
Tom
his
Brady.
age,
But
with his
on the
minutes that he
court-
plays.
On the court, but that's my point.
Yeah, he's
On the
an
court.
important piece, but he is a small role.
Well, of course, that goes without saying. The
He's
guy's
a
30
small part.
The guy's 38 years old.
If
but
if they can't do it without him, then they
I'm
don't
just saying,
deserve it
Eddie,
anyway.
Eddie, listen to me, Eddie. Listen to me. I said he can't fly under the radar of his importance to the team, whether it be in the locker room and what he brings to that team.
Oh, there's
whether
no
it's
doubt
on the
he's one of the
bench,
big, one of the
when
most.
he does get
He's
on
one of the
court,
loudest voices
just
in that
his
locker room. I guarantee
just
that.
his cerebral approach, how he can coach from the sideline, coach these players to help Steve Kerr and all these guys. I think his presence will also help with the addition of Jalen. Of Draymond Green, because again, you have a guy who can initiate
but here's the
during this time.
but
of
the Klay Thompson factor. The Klay Thompson is not who he was. All right,
Right now, it seems like that,
not right.
it does seem like
coming off of an ACL and
And
an
an
Achilles back to back.
And Achilles,
He's not gonna be. He's not going to be that Klay, that 28-year-old Klay, that 62 points and 11 dribbles type Klay again. Not no time soon. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But he's not going to be at top form till sometime next year.
I agree with that.
yeah, so I think Golden State is going to suffer because of that.
Well, I think I think what's going to happen.
They're a team that could clearly, you feel
They
like
have
with
so
Steph they
much
could beat
depth.
anybody in a series.
No.
But you know what I think it hinges on more than
Hey.
anything, fellas?
Steph can get
How
hot,
healthy would
and
Draymond
he can bury some teams. I mean, we've seen it.
They haven't
Okay?
beat.
I
They
think
haven't beaten a
Klay-
team in the
here's the-
winning record since like January.
They're reeling, and I'm disappointed in Andrew Wiggins as of late. He's got his All-Star voting, and he's just melded in. It seems
It's like
But
Steph,
just saying-
Steph got his
But
3-point record
Just
and mailed it
saying
in.
that,
Well,
just
well,
saying that
but
they
here's what I'm
can
saying.
doesn't mean I'm saying that they will.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just saying that they can.
Draymond, his presence is obvious. Eddie,
Yeah,
what did I say a
without
month and a half
Draymond,
ago?
they're soft. We
I
know
said
that. They're
without
soft in the
Draymond,
middle.
they are not-
He's the enforcer.
Yes.
They don't have anybody to enforce
I
like
think
that,
they-
And what he brings
especially
on
without
the side-
Iguodala.
I think
And-
they're out in the second
and
round
his
versus
depth.
Denver.
I don't think so.
Look.
Denver, if they get Jamal Murray back, that could be interesting.
For me
Because
in the
Jokic,
West-
who we don't talk about enough, he's a bad man, and he's right there in the running for
Hey,
MVP. But with the depth Golden State has, and as far as your Klay point, real quick, I agree. And he hasn't been that guy because I think what happens is that knee is getting sore from time to time. But again, I think when Draymond gets back, it's going to help them space the floor. He's going to initiate things better, going to open up things for him. And I think Klay, he'll round into better shape going into the playoffs. And I think you'll start seeing things open up for the Golden State Warriors and their shooters more with Draymond back and Iguodala.
Well,
whenever he
yeah,
gets
of
in.
course. He's a big
And I
part
think
of
Klay
what they
will
do.
knock
He
down
has
some of
been
those shots.
for.
He's going to have his 25 points, his 30-point games in the playoffs, bro.
Golden State's missing a piece. You know what that piece is?
I don't know what he brings on the defense side no more.
They need Christian Wood. That's who they need.
Ooh,
That
he
would
would
be
be
nice.
Well,
nice for Golden
that
State.
ship
Well,
is
James
already
Wiseman's
sailed.
gonna come
No,
back.
sir. This summer.
James
I mean, yeah,
This
but it
summer-
ain't gonna do anything for them this year. And-
If you look
I
at
understand
James
that.
Wiseman-
And you know who I want for him? You know who I want for him, Eddie? I want
Hey, fellas.
Jonathan Kuminga. Give it.
Yeah,
Bring
I
it
don't
on.
That's
Bring it on.
Look.
Hold on. You're not getting Jonathan Kuminga because Golden State feels like he's the next superstar. So that's what I'm saying about Golden State's depth on the defense.
He won't
What
Yeah,
if
but
go
they don't.
back
They don't
home?
necessarily have
He
time
won't
to
be
wait
a
for the next
superstar
superstar.
until
They need
until-
somebody who
until-
can perform like one now, and Christian
Hell,
Wood could do that.
But Kuminga's playing behind Draymond Green. You got to
Now-
remember that too.
He won't be a
Now,
superstar
Christian Wood,
until
the only way
Steph
they
and
can
Klay,
get Christian
their
Wood,
window is gone.
The only way the Golden State Warriors can get Christian Wood is if the Rockets get back James Wiseman. That's it.
No, I want Kuminga. Keep Wiseman.
Golden
I
State's
don't
not
want.
gonna do that.
Don't
I
need
mean,
Wiseman.
The Rockets, Golden State is going to keep Kuminga.
If you want Wood,
I
I
like
gotta have
Wiseman.
Kuminga. I gotta have Kuminga.
See? But that's
Gotta
what I'm
have
talking about
him.
Golden State. But Wiseman's going to come back. He's going to add some rim protection.
That's fine.
He's
Let
gonna
him.
add some
Let
protection.
him. I don't trust him.
I don't
You
see.
say, he's coming off major injury.
Yeah.
I say Golden State win
the
healthy.
second one.
With Draymond, you say who to win it all.
To win it all.
You said Philadelphia?
Philly gonna come out the East. I think Phoenix coming out the West.
You think Phoenix coming out of the West?
I don't believe
think
in Dallas
Golden
either.
State's- I didn't like that trade at first, but I'm gonna tell you who else who's hit
They're gonna
their
get
stride.
they're gonna get crushed on the boards in the
Well,
playoffs.
Dallas is not a championship caliber team right now, but Dinwiddie has been a revelation to me. I knew he was good. I watched him in high
He's
school.
nice.
But Dallas plays some defense, so they'll probably win a playoff series this time. But you still got to worry about the Bucks. Still got to worry about the Heat, the 76ers, Celtics, Bulls. I mean, I'm still rolling with the Warriors when healthy.
Warriors ain't in there. Warriors ain't about it. Warriors ain't even gonna make
They're
the
there
Western
for
Conference
me.
Finals.
Until somebody
I'm
knocks
just
them out,
saying
they're there for me.
they've got an opportunity to
Who your team
they
is?
could beat any team. I think in the West, it wouldn't surprise me. It's not like there's any
Y'all
series
get
we
caught
go
up in the
into
moment, bro.
where they would come out and Steph goes off and does what Steph does and they end up winning. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I can't believe that happened because
So you just
you
don't think
can't
they're
talk
gonna
about the
win?
Warriors like that. I just don't think it's their year. I think this is the year where
If Draymond is healthy, I
I
think
picked
it is.
Phoenix before the season even started to win the championship. I think Phoenix is in the Western Conference Finals, barring that Chris Paul doesn't get hit by a bus.
Hey, gotta mention Memphis.
But this is
Almost
also
Gotta
hang.
mention
Will
Memphis.
you?
Gotta mention Memphis.
I can't get anything out here. If you
No,
give
you
me a
can't. It's time
second,
for us
if
to
you
go.
give me a second, I'm telling you, this is the year one of these teams makes the jump. Whether it's Memphis, whether it's Utah, or whether it's Dallas,
Okay.
one of those teams makes the jump, and they're going to be the team that's going to be competing in the Western Conference Finals against the
I say
Suns.
the Warriors if Draymond comes back healthy. You say someone else.
Because
you say someone else.
I think
That's why
Memphis,
they play the
even though
game.
they're playing well right now, I don't think this is that year for them. I think they need to develop maybe another year.
Well,
but
some
I could
playoff
easily
experience.
see
Some playoff
Utah
experience.
or Dallas getting really hot
I think
and being
Memphis
that
can
team.
beat Utah even in the playoffs. Even the experience that Utah has with the exploits of John Morant and the depth that they have and the way that coach has them playing.
Yeah,
on
but
both
I'm
sides of
fresh
the
off
ball.
seeing the Rockets
I can
kick their
see
ass,
Memphis beating Utah
so
in
that's
the
kind of
playoffs.
knocked them down a little
Dallas-
notch.
I can see Memphis beating
One and done.
Well, they won a back-to-back. They won a back-to-back. And I think they went out the night they got here. I think they went out to the strip clubs that night. But
No,
Memphis
here we
is
go.
a team to be reckoned with, fellas. But I still think Draymond, when Draymond gets back, I still think Golden State, they turn it up. You're going to see that ball movement. You're going to see that depth. You're going to see that defense, who was the number one defense. I think Wiggins picks it back up. Kuminga continues to excel. And Phoenix is a team to be reckoned with when Chris Paul comes back healthy with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Hey, all we're saying is, folks, it's going to be very competitive. And we're just talking about the West right now. The East, like I just stated, I mean, the Cavs are going to make some noise. They're not going to make too much noise in the playoffs, but they're an ascending team as well. But you know what? It's time for us to get out of here. We're going to be back next week. Great job, guys. Great job, Brett. BT, see you soon. Eddie, see you next week. And the Sports Court, legends live and let live.
Hey, it was good to have you, Brett. We'll have you back on again real soon. Now, y'all get out of here. We're tired of looking at y'all. Get the hell out of here.